Hey, everybody, what's going on? Good evening. Welcome to another show. If you're able to check it live, otherwise, good morning, good afternoon, good night, all that kind of stuff, I guess, depending on whenever you catch it. So, I've been away for a little bit, and Tom Rabbitt's videos for Darth have been kind of stacking up. Some of them have been kind of equal between, actual conversations Darth's having with people and then the kind of drama that Darth is already generating in his little clubhouse environment. So I'm not really going to be covering a lot of the clubhouse drama gossip kind of stuff with this one in particular, although I might get into that. It's kind of hard to avoid. But there are a couple of videos on here. This one is a conversation that he has with Yuri and I think somebody else. And he makes some weird points here. Some of them are they're kind of normal. They're just sort of cliched things that Christians say. And they usually, I think they deserve more pushback than they get. I'm going to go through this one. The second one that I'm going to do after this one is one he did earlier than this one. Tom Rabbittt released it. And I think it's kind of a flashback video because I could have swore I saw this exchange that he has with a guy named Soldier of Science from like a couple of months ago. But all is good. I may have seen it I think I may have seen it on another YouTuber's site that kind of occasionally does like Dawkins recaps kind of things. But anyway, thanks Red Fang for showing up. Good to see you. Michael Deaton, thank you for showing up. And Daisy One. Yep, I'm back. So hopefully I can do a few more of these over the weekend. It's been busy at work, and I don't know how many of these I'm going to get cranked out. Although more than likely I will be busy during the Thanksgiving holidays. I'll probably end up doing a holiday show. Not that it'll be any different. It'll just be me grousing about the eternal turkey that is Darth Dawkins. So, without further ado, I'm going to get into this first one. This is Darth Dawkins versus Yuri. Darth does what he does out of love. We'll listen to this one a little bit. And as usual, comments are welcome. Criticism's welcome. If volume is not working and clip's not working, scream at me in the live chat. Here we go.
Welcome to the room, Yuri.
But it would help if I shared the screen. There's actually a new button on this I found, a new setting that they have put in here. They've got the picture mode. I'm going to try it. I don't think it really does much for me. It might work better if that was, that was somehow full screen, but whatever. I'll have to play around with this a little bit more. But here we go.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. Are you an atheist, Yuri?
No,
Okay. Well, what are you, Yuri?
I am a Jewish person.
Jewish.
Yes.
Well, now, are you a Unitarian?
No, actually, I just had a question for you, if that's all right.
Sure, go ahead.
Why do you care so much about other people's mental disorders?
Because their chosen mental disorders is going to send them to eternal damnation. That's why I care.
It's out of love. It's out of love.
A chosen mental disorder. So Darth believes that mental disorders are things that people choose. Neat. Not surprising. I think he believes that beliefs are things people pick. Just like, when he was a kid, he chose to believe in Santa Claus, or when he chose to believe in God. I think on this one particular issue, I think this is where Christians are probably the most blinkered, because the idea that you choose to believe in something in order to get salvation is, with a little careful consideration, kind of a weird idea. And anytime you bring it up to any of them, like, are you being rewarded because you chose to believe in the right thing? Like, first of all, how did you do that? How did you choose a belief? How did you make yourself convinced that this was the case? And is God rewarding you for picking that belief, or weren't you saved by Jesus himself, his sacrifice? Usually they'll try to say, oh, it's a combination of the two. Sure, Jesus died for your sins, but you have to acknowledge it. Like, yeah, I could acknowledge it hypothetically, like if that's true and if he died for my hypothetical sins, sure, I accept that. Do I get to go to heaven? Absolutely not. Hard pass.
I see.
If somebody is in a building and they are irrationally fetishizing about some aspect of the building, and I know that the building's on fire and they're facing destruction if they don't flee,
Mm-hmm.
then should I not care and try to obliterate their irrationality to plead with them to flee the building?
Yeah, to help them out, save them.
Okay.
You're saving sinners? I thought Jesus saved sinners, guys.
Well, that's the same thing as life. These people are building their lives on a pile of sand. And when it rains, the sand is going to collapse. It is not based upon a solid rock, which is Jesus Christ. Without Jesus Christ being the Messiah, the second person of the Godhead, okay, then we're going to face eternal destruction. And one of the ways that we can know this, Yuri, is that...
So before he gets into that, let me just point out. So Christians are telling you that they are concerned that you are going to be killed by the God they worship, that you should choose to love, and who loves you. Because if you don't, he's coming right for you. Like, I mean, you could do a horror movie about the God that they're talking about where, it's an entire slasher movie. And at the end, all you have to do is acknowledge what he did for you, walk up to him and give him a hug. Never mind the slime, the hockey mask, the machete, and the power drill. Don't worry about that. Just give that big lug a hug. That's what he wants. He wants you to acknowledge him. And then he'll quit killing you and your friends.
Any other worldview, even worldviews that pay lip service to the existence of God, will turn out to be, upon examination, not coherent. Why? Because those gods will not have all great-making properties. So
Well, yeah, but the reason that a lot of those other gods don't have great-making properties is because when you shove them all into one being, things start to get a little weird. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Blade, but it's like the end of it. Well, I don't want to give away the ending, but it's some bad CG with Stephen Dorff and an emulsifier. It's gross, but like this idea that he has, like, well, yeah, sure, there's these other gods and these other cultures, but they just don't stack up to Yahweh. Well, sure, they don't, right? If you took the entire catalog of superheroes and then you're just like, you know what if you put all of these abilities into just one person? Clearly, that's the best superhero out of the bunch. All right, and also, it's not as interesting anymore, right? Because this thing now can do anything, right? Superman is like, and then things start to fall apart, right? Like Superman's not going to play detective like Batman does, because he doesn't have those. I could go on. I don't want to get into superhero metaphors. We're already dealing with natural disaster metaphors, and the natural disasters are the God he's talking about. So, yeah, we'll try to keep this relatively sane.
For example, if you say you believe in God and you have a Unitarian conception of God as opposed to a biblical Trinitarian conception of God, a Unitarian
Christian biblical.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, correct.
Okay. A mere Unitarian conception of God,
Mere.
which is...
So I want to point out one thing. I'm going to be getting in some cheap shots on this guy named Enlighten. I don't know whose photo that is he's using for his avatar. The Enlightened guy, the guy with the brown hair. He's got a microphone right up to his face, thin lips, beady eyes, likely Christian, probably a right-wing conservative political type. It's just what I see when I see a thin-lipped cisgender white male, who's, or maybe he's not. Maybe he's the exact opposite. Maybe he's doing kind of like a Darth Dawkins thing. This is some kind of like, he's a progressive atheist, but Enlightened's trying to make a point.
A absolute denial of the inner plurality within God's unity is not coherent. Because
so for a guy who hates gobbledygook, saying things like the inner plurality of God's unity is kind of gobbledygooky. Like, what kind of mess are you trying to throw around there? This is just really sloppy stuff.
Now we no longer have a God who is all great-making properties. So that's why you can know that contemporary Judaism is actually a deviation from biblical Judaism. Okay? Because in the Old Testament,
we all know that. Actually, we know that it's not a deviation, but it's not the same. We know that. We freely admit that.
Of course, it's a deviation.
No, it's not. It's an expansion and an interpretation. It's not a deviation.
No, it is not. No, it is not.
Tell me for how long you've studied Judaism.
Okay, well, I don't have to be an expert in Judaism to understand the basic tenets. Now, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Does your Unitarian conception of God within contemporary Judaism, does he have all great making properties?
Okay, Yuri, talk.
Does your
I thought Enlightenment was going to tell him, hey, clap for him.
God have all great making properties?
What does Yahweh have all great making properties? Sure. I mean, Darth believes in Yahweh, right?
I didn't say that I had a Unitarian conception. I haven't said what my views are on God yet.
Okay. Well, I've asked you over and over again, why are you dodging?
I'm not. I was just came to ask you why you're so concerned with everybody else's mental states. And
yeah, because
I heard the answer was love. I heard that the answer was love.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't seem very loving the way that you're trying to beat people up. So,
shots fired. He doesn't think it's loving, and he said these are fighting words. He said Darth's beating people up. You can probably actually hear Darth clench up a little bit, because despite the fact that this guy is just a gaping asshole most of the time, he does not like being accused of any kind of bad behavior at all. So we'll see here. So he'll usually do it one of two ways: either "how dare you," or it's "I'm not beating them up. They're cushy snowflakes that can't handle a real man who's assertive." Either way, yeah, of course it's not his fault. It's never his fault. It's always somebody else's. It's something else's.
And you know what's funny? And you know what's funny? On Judgment Day, when you stand before Jesus Christ, you're going to realize how that statement was wrong.
Okay, so this is interesting. So Jesus is going to back Darth when Yuri goes to see him after he dies. This seems a little. He's kind of full of it here.
I don't think that's going to happen.
You are in for the rudest awakening. Okay, yep. This is not a little game here. Okay, every one of us is one heartbeat away from Judgment Day.
That's right. That's right.
The Bible says it is appointed unto men once to die, then comes the judgment.
Right, which is what. So does everybody encounter their judgment day as soon as they're dead? Some people actually believe, and this is true through Christianity, everyone dies and they go into a certain kind of sleep, and then they're brought back. Right, everybody lays in sleep. It's not until Christ returns that we are physically brought back to life, and then we're judged. So just because you die doesn't mean you're immediately gonna. But I see the point would be the same, right? You take the dirt nap. You sleep like the dead, pun intended, and then you wake up, brand new body, ready to rock, but now you got to go to court and face the music, potentially, right? But it's a weird kind of court because you're basically you were presumed guilty throughout your life, unless you did some things to kind of mediate that. Of course, that's not what it is. No, Jesus took care of that for you, but he really didn't. You still had to be a good person in order to get out of that kind of crap. And this is what Darth's appealing to here. So this is really kind of fucked up. You need to wake up and realize that there are things that you should do, and thoughts you should think, and things you should say, and ways you should be that are going to get you heaven. And if you neglect those things or fall short in attempting to do those things in the correct way that gets you to heaven, you will go to the not heaven place, the pokey, sexy torture place, or, depending on what your take is. So if that's really the case, then exactly at what point does faith come into this? Because if I just believe that, I think that we're condemned, we're intrinsically bad, we're of a fallen nature, and there isn't anything that we can do to be saved. There's nothing that we can do to earn our salvation or be reconciled with God. The only reconciliation possible is the kind that God provided through Jesus. That way, everyone's saved, right? Not so fast. Still have to think the right things, say the right things, do the right things, or else, right? There's always a caveat. You could follow the salvation narrative to the conclusion that I've taken it, but it takes you down towards what they call universalism. Everyone gets saved, right? But that's a radical notion and largely heretical because most organized religions run essentially like country clubs, and membership is exclusive.
Now, either you believe that there's going to be a way to escape the righteousness and justice of God or not. But you see, in your religious outlook, there is no plan of salvation in order for you to escape the wrath of God. Because if you escape the wrath of God, let me finish. If you escape the wrath of God, then your God is not a good. If you escape the wrath of God, then your God is not a good God because you're.
A good God gets his punishment in, right? Walker gets his man. You know, Swayze takes out the trash, Roadhouse style, etc. Okay, but keep in mind, right, the Christian concern here is that your house is on fire, or you're standing on the railroad tracks and there's a train coming, and you're just standing around lollygagging like a drunk chicken or something, and we're trying to get out of the way, you fool, get out of that burning house, you know, because the fire slash train slash truck slash Jesus is going to kill you unless, I don't know why I'm slipping into this weird Southern hillbilly accent. They're going to kill you unless Jesus saves you. But Jesus is the train, bus, flame, whatever that's killing you at the same time. It's just, it's such a tortured rhetoric. It's such a tortured analogy that I really don't get it, right? Like God's going to have to punish you unless you acknowledge the fact that he saved you. What? That's like, let's say that you're hanging off a cliff with 5 people, right? Now you're freezing to death. You can't talk, right? A helicopter comes by and rescues you and the 4 other people that you're with. Now those 4 of those other people, they were able to call out and scream for help from the helicopter. Not that it really matters. It's a bad analogy, but you know, they called for help and the helicopter saves everybody, including you, but you didn't call out, right? And when they realize that you didn't call out for help, they pitch you over the side. Does that make sense? What the hell did they save you for? But this is the scheme that we have to look forward to. We've all been saved, unless you don't acknowledge it, and then into the fire pit you go. Bonkers.
Your God doesn't have a plan of salvation, Yuri.
Is it my turn?
Yeah. Does your God have a plan of salvation?
Yeah, it's just different from yours.
Yeah, don't you love the obfuscation, folks?
Yeah,
okay,
God. Why is that obfuscating? Yes,
what is the plan?
Okay,
Yuri, that was an obfuscatory. Excuse my botching that. That was an obfuscation. What specifically is the plan of salvation with your God?
Well, we'd have to study that for a number of years together for you to be able to understand it.
So you don't have one, do you, Yuri?
Yes, I do.
I love that. Yuri's trying to say that's a little bit more complicated than that. You have to study it for quite a while. Darth's conclusion: oh, you don't have one. You can't give me a short, incomplete, stupid, inaccurate answer. I don't fucking care then. It must mean that there's nothing there. This guy is a walking fallacy machine.
Good. What is it?
Well, at the end of days, history as we know it will end. And we will find out what happens. There are many opinions within Judaism.
One, do you?
There are many opinions within Judaism
Yuri,
about
what specifically is your God's plan of salvation?
The Messiah is going to come and build a temple.
No. What is your God's plan of salvation?
So as you can see, Enlighten is kind of a jerk, just like Darth. A little bit lighter, kind of like a diet Darth. But he's kind of a jerk. The weird thing about this that I find interesting is that these guys are so quick to ridicule Judaism, which is the foundation for which Christianity is based on. Christianity is, after all, just sort of fan fiction Judaism part 2, right? It's got a little sequel on it. It's like, you know, it's basically like the 50 Shades of Grey to, you know, Christianity is the 50 Shades of Grey to Judaism's Twilight.
It's a question that doesn't really make sense because that's not how we think about it in Judaism.
So in other words, you do not have an identifiable plan by which God will save people from his justice and wrath.
No, because we don't believe that people are born inherently sinful and in need of saving.
Oh, okay. So
really?
So in other words, the human condition, as we now see it on planet Earth and in terms of human history, is normal.
Is normal?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the human condition.
I find it interesting that he's this incredulous about this. So keep this in mind, right? So Adam and Eve, they're tooling around in the garden. They're told that there's some contraband fruit hanging on a really nice tree, and it's got an MC that's a snake that sits in there. It's kind of a hype man for the tree, and it talks some of them into eating the fruit, and then they eat it, and then all of a sudden they're kicked out of paradise, and then everything goes on from there. Right now, throughout the book of Genesis, basically man is just a walking, talking pile of accidents and shit. Right? It's, according to the Bible, only evil all the time, pretty much right up until Noah, right? And God gets so sick of all this nastiness and evil that he decides everybody's got to get snuffed out except for Noah and his family. So a similar kind of thing happens here, right? Kind of the same thing. So God creates an environment, a world. He puts two people there. He establishes kind of a covenant relationship with them. The people screw it up. He kicks them out. There's consequences for them violating the relationship. Covenant broken, right? They establish a new reality. People begin to grow and multiply on the planet. Finally, Darth's had enough. They're just too gross, too nasty. Something's got to be done. He's going to wash them away with floodwaters, except for Noah and his family. So when that happens and Noah and his family are saved, he establishes a new covenant with them. And now Noah and his family are allowed to grow and repopulate. And we won't talk about the one son that wanders off, the one that saw Noah naked, and he wanders off and finds a wife and starts another group of people on his own. It's in there. Read your Bible, folks. Loaded with contradictions. But that's a covenant relationship. Most of the Old Testament is built on that kind of relationship, that back and forth relationship, people wrestling with God, right? The whole idea of Israel being named Israel was, Jacob was named Israel because it means wrestle with God. So that's sort of the nature of the relationship. Christians are the ones that have simplified it to Adam and Eve did something bad. Everybody is born shitty. And the only way we get out of it is if Jesus dies for our sins. That's not the Jewish outlook. And the fact that Darth and Enlighten here are that just, dismissive of it, really tells me that they have no respect for the Bible. A lot of Christians don't, but specifically the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, they don't have any respect for that because they've only read it as a foundation for, as a backstop for the Jesus stories that they like.
I think the human condition as observed now is exactly the same as it's always been.
Okay. So in other words, the human condition that we have seen human beings behave from the dawn of history till now, okay, your God is hunky-dory with the way people behave on this planet. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, okay. So the human condition is not, it's abnormal then, correct?
No. It is.
Oh,
it is
either the human condition is abnormal.
Abnormal.
Or it's normal.
I vote for abnormal because that sounds whimsical. This is really gonna rub all of Darth the wrong way because it's obvious to him that people are awful because he's a misanthrope. No, wait, I'm sorry. Because he believes in Jesus and the Bible tells him so, right? So he can't deal with this. Like, obviously, Adam and Eve are probably super cool people until they ate that damn fruit. And then all of a sudden they were just inveterate assholes, right? And all their kids were destined to be assholes too. I mean, look at Cain. Killed his own brother. And what was his brother? What did his brother do wrong? He was good at tending, or he was a hunter and he tended sheep and stuff. God liked the barbecue Abel laid out, didn't so much like the burning grain that Cain offered to him because, PU. Who wants cream of wheat when somebody's offering up the smoked brisket? This stuff that Darth gets, this to me is like one of the core things of American Christianity in total. A lot of the people that gravitate towards it hate people, like deep within them, in a way that they're probably not totally conscious of. And the message behind this is the world is a shitty place and people are awful. And they probably were better and they can be better, but only if something supernatural changes them. Otherwise, we're just scumbags. So there's a lot of weird kind of self-loathing and misanthropy built into Christianity, and Darth oozes with it, and it's coming out here.
It is. I don't. It just is.
It is what?
It
What
is. It is what it is.
Sir,
Oh.
is it abnormal or normal?
I would say so, Crafty. Yes. If you read your Old Testament, I think vegetarianism is an affront to God. Especially when who was it that used it as a trick? He gave up his birthright for a bowl of lentils. I mean, a bowl of lentils? Yeah, clearly that guy deserves to be cheated out of his inheritance. Now, if he'd given up his inheritance for a side of beef, maybe.
I don't really understand the question.
Okay, goodbye, Yuri. You prove my point. Okay, you prove my point that when you.
I just want to point out that Yuri. It sounds like Yuri is having this conversation with these two ding dongs while he's driving, because you can hear his in city driving at that, because you keep hearing his turning signal kick on. So I think he did an okay job attempting to have a conversation with these guys, given the fact that he's not comfortable entirely. Like, he's multitasking, but of course, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't try to multitask. Darth needs your complete attention. In fact, people have probably been told that about him when they're getting him into the psych ward.
Reject the self-identity claims of Jesus Christ and you adopt an idolatrous construct when you are confronted with the internal
It was Esau. Thank you, Crafty.
incoherence of that idolatrous construct, you become deceptive and evasive and you prevaricate, which is what unbelievers do. Goodbye, Yuri.
Yuri, you probably haven't even read the Old Testament, okay? You're a
You
false.
see, folks, this is what they do. Okay, and big bad Darth Dawkins, he asks people tough questions and he confronts them about being deceitful and deceptive. Oh wow, I have no love, right?
Yeah, you're so mean.
Assuming that everyone is deceptive is an indication that you're not a loving person, right? You don't assume that people are mistaken. You assume that they are lying to you or are insane. That's an indication for you, Darth Dawkins, that you are not a loving person because you lack charity 99.9% of the time.
Really? if it wasn't for the fact that these people are facing.
I don't like this enlightened guy because his snide snickers and his crappy voice and everything, his voice makes me want to punch the face of that photo. And now that I'm thinking about it, that might be that opposition guy, the guy in Russia. Is his name Navalny, I think? Keeps getting poisoned. I'm wondering if that's him. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But
Future eternal damnation. What would I care what they believe? Right?
Yeah, you're mean, Darth. You're mean. You're
mean. Because you see, this isn't a debate over.
It's not just that Darth's mean; it's that he's wrong while he's mean. That's what makes him an interesting lulz cow, right? Like he gets upset because he's jumped to the conclusion that someone's lying to him when he's not following what they're saying, or he's not prepared to acknowledge that their information might be incomplete, or they're just attempting to carry on a conversation with him and they don't have all the facts at their disposal. So he gets frustrated because he's got anger issues.
Over individual facts. It is a debate, it is a clash between world views, between the Christian theistic worldview versus idolatries of your choice. Idolatries de jure, the soup of the day. But you see, if
de jure, you could just say soup de jour.
I go after the worldviews of the day that they seem to pick in their running from the God of the Bible, if I expose it for being bankrupt and that they are facing eternal damnation.
But it's bankrupt because you're assuming eternal damnation is the thing. So you're not even. Darth is now admitting that he's not even prepared to deal with their worldview as a worldview in and of itself, right? It doesn't work for him because my worldview says that you're damned. Neat. then why are you even talking about their other worldviews? You have no respect for them. You can barely acknowledge that they're independent. He just said that the reason that people go after these things is because they're running from the God that they know about, are scared of the God that they know about, or just want to sin because they don't want to acknowledge the God that they know about. So everybody lives in his world, and Darth's right, and they're all wrong. So the fact that he even engages in this kind of like, oh, I have a worldview and you have a worldview is a bunch of fucking nonsense. It's total fucking nonsense. He needs to knock this shit off.
Well, I'm the bad guy. You see, you're not the bad guy.
He admits it. You are the bad guy. You're the bad guy if you set up some kind of rhetorical device to tell people that I want to know what your worldview is. But you don't think that there are other worldviews, Darth. You just think that there is reality. It's objective. It's made by God, and God's definitely going to get you if you don't admit that you need him. And not just admit that you need them, but then start doing, you got to go through some kind of motions. There's certain things that you need to do in order to be a real Christian. And if you want to know more about that, loyal listeners and viewers, just, watch any of these things where he's having conversations with Christians. He's more than willing to call out Christians for not being Christian enough. So if it's just faith and belief and love in Jesus, and they want to sell you that, be careful, because they're lying to you.
Bad guy. That's like my neighbor's house is on fire. I see it. I run up and I start banging on the door, right? And the other neighbor calls out to me and says, "Boy, you are one nasty SOB. Look how you're talking to these people." And I go, "Look, your house is on fire." And
keep in mind, Darth has not dealt with the fact that in this analogy, the fire that is consuming this person's house is the God he wants these people to go to. He still is not. I don't know why they're not. They always miss the big picture of this kind of thing. Now he's going to fix it on the fact, like, I'm just there telling you that this fire is out of control and it's going to kill you. And then you respond to me with, what a sourpuss, what a mean old cuss. How dare you confront me? Like, okay, if that analogy were true, that's great. But in order to be consistent about your analogy, let's say that both you ding-dongs are engaging in this conversation. You're watching two complete morons talking to each other. One of you is telling the other person the God that I've been telling you about, that I love with all my heart and soul and strength, that I want you to acknowledge and love with all your heart and soul and strength. He's set your house on fire, and you need to run because he's going to get you next. Love him with all your heart, soul, and strength. And the other guy is like, well, I don't like the cut of your jib, and I don't like the tone of your voice, so fuck off. So I would agree. If Darth's talking about this, given that exchange, yes, that hypothetical person responding that way is an idiot. But so is the person who's trying to issue a warning about the God they love.
the owner just starts laughing. So what are you talking about? So you got to get out of the house. Got to get your family out. The house is on fire. You dumb idiot. Will you listen to me? Get your family out. You're gonna die. And the guy in the door just saying, what are you even talking about? If there was a fire, I'd smell it. If there was a fire, the smoke detector would go. They give all sorts of reasoning, and the other neighbor on site is like, yeah, boy, you say you love your neighbor and you're talking trash to him that way?
Okay, but if now the analogy is slightly different, because now it sounds like I went and told my neighbor that their house is on fire, but there's no flames, there's no smoke, there's no indication at all that there's anything going wrong with the house. But you need to take my word for it. Don't trust your lying eyes. What?
This is how idiotic you people are.
Agreed. This is how idiotic you people are.
Okay?
Yeah.
Wake up and smell the coffee.
Go start.
But they can't smell the fire, Darth. I mean, come on, man.
Every rejection of the self-identity claims of Jesus Christ, it's going to send you to eternal separation from God.
Right.
And
By God. God's going to separate himself from you because you didn't believe in him, which makes no sense because he died for everybody. That doesn't make sense.
the only way, one more thing, the only way that I can get you to realize that is to show you that your denial is completely absurd.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Okay, my denial is absurd because what if it's not a denial? What if it's not like Darth is too childish to even get this? What if the denial is conditional? Like, I'm not denying that what if I'm like a Matt Dillahunty type, right? Now, me personally, I'm a little bit on the stronger side. I think that the God that Darth is talking about by definition isn't possible. Like if you get in that modal ontological argument where it's either necessary or it's impossible, I'm on the impossible side, because all those great making properties that Darth thinks are, well, great, they start to become catastrophic in the presence of one being, or hell, even the presence of three beings. I mean, you know, they have lots of problems, but that's what Darth wants to this is what Darth clings to. So for me, I would just say, okay, well, you know, that's different. I'm saying, no, I don't think this is real. But for a lot of other people, it's, what if they did the pragmatic approach to belief, like a Pascal's wager kind of thing? No, I'm not entirely convinced that it's real, but I'm inclined to think that it's possible, and possible enough that I'm going to adhere to it as much as possible, so that if it is real, I benefit from it. You know, and if it's not real, then and annihilation is true. We just, when we die, we simply cease to exist, and well, that's fine too, right? I don't lose anything, but I potentially gain a lot. Also, Pascal's wager had that little tweak in it that no one really could know enough to really believe. They would never be able to understand it because it was so far beyond us and all that kind of shit. Anyway, so what Darth's doing here doesn't seem like, I'm going to point out that your denial is insane. It's absurd. No, it's not. Because if somebody's having a subjective experience, their subjective experience is, I'm not convinced that there really is a God, but I'm not convinced that there isn't one either. I am kind of neutral. Maybe there is one. And if that's the case, I hope that his salvation covers me. How is that approach going to fly with Darth? He's going to fly into a rage.
Okay, I have to show you that your alternative worldview by which you give Jesus Christ the double middle fingers is irrational on its own terms. And we saw James up here claiming to champion reason and rationality, yet he was the epitome of irrationality. We went step by step by step through his objections to the existence of God, and every single one of his objections turned out not to be rational at all.
You want to point this out, Alex Ritchie? Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, the de jure part, I kind of let that go, but yeah, the fact that he's pronouncing it that way, yeah, that's totally different than du jour. But good luck convincing, Darth of that. He thinks that some of the criticisms we do on here are catcalling. So yeah, can't teach an old dog certain new tricks, and you can't give him new definitions.
But oh no. Right. I'm unloving to show him that he's irrational and that he's facing a holy and righteous God when his heart stops.
Yeah.
I'm the bad guy.
You are the bad guy. This is absolutely stupid. This God is simultaneously all loving and all merciful and all just, which is really a massive problem. And this is something I've pointed out before. Darth has absolutely no trouble understanding, because he said this at the beginning. If you can get away from that God's wrath, that God's not good, because that God should have perfect judgment. His justice is perfect, so it's going to get you. He's not just going to let people get away. You're not gonna skip bail or escape prison or any of that kind of shit. You get exactly what you deserve. However, and God has to do that. He can't escape that because that's a great making property of God. It's part of his nature. But the other aspect of that is God is also all merciful. And they always fuck this up. The emphasis is God can't not punish people. That's why Jesus shows up. But God can forgive people. No. If God is all just and all merciful, he is as committed to forgiving as he is committed to punishing. And Christians never get this right. They emphasize the fact that God has to punish. It's the basis of all of Christianity. If you've got these two conflicting notions, these are at odds with each other. The way to make that work is, well, we have Jesus who stands in as a substitution for our sins. That way God doesn't have to forgive us. That means he's not all merciful. So you have a problem. They will always default to the fact that God must judge. But if you want to fight them back on basic theology, ask them how they feel about God being forced to forgive. Forced by his nature. Definitionally, he must forgive. They will resist it. In fact, they will tell you the opposite. No, God can forgive whomever he wants, and he can judge whomever he wants because he's perfectly just. Okay. But in these kinds of arguments, you're going to stand in it. You have to make sure that you're right with God, because God will not, he will not withhold his punishment from you. What the fuck was the point of salvation? It's the whole point of it. These guys are just skipping around within a goofy theology where, oh, I can tell you, I can scare you with this God. If I can't get you to cuddle up with him, then instead of descriptions of him being a loving teddy bear that you need to take to bed with you every night, now I'm going to talk to you about the killer Kodiak man-eater that's bound to get you, right? It's just a matter of time. Like, please.
The bad guy. You live in your mother's basement, Darth. That's what they think.
I was going to say enlightened. That was harsh. Why did you just do that to? Oh, I see. We just say that he lives in his mom's basement. I think he does live in his mom's basement. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. The problem is that I think he occasionally just goes upstairs to shove his mom around, force her to cook, wash his Grundies.
Pretty sad, though, guys. Pretty sad. You know, slavery's coming, and it's not going to be, you're not going to be slave of us. It's going to be, you're going to be the slave of the devil. Okay? And you're going to all bow the knee on the day of judgment.
You're going to bow that knee.
You need to come to repent.
Unless he forgives you. Thanks to Jesus, he can forgive absolutely everybody, right? Oh, wait, no. Because of Jesus, he must forgive everybody. No, I guess not. You must bow the knee. If you don't do that, how is that any different than the Old Testament stuff? How is that any different than Judaism? In Judaism, the reason that Yuri didn't get into this, and I'm not sure why, this is my basic understanding of it. In Judaism, you do not become saved because you believe in God or you have no doubts or it's based on a faith reward or any of that other kind of stuff. Salvation is ultimately based on kind of how good a life you lead, right? Now, Christians like Darth hate this kind of shit because it sounds like a works-based theology and works-based salvation. So what they usually run with is, well, that's not how things work. You can't do anything to save yourself. Judaism is kind of the same way. You're not being saved per se. But if you pay attention to the law, you study the Torah, you attempt to do what is right and what is just in God's eyes, then you probably will be rewarded in the afterlife. Right? I'm vastly oversimplifying it. I'm not a Jewish scholar by any means. I have no real world connection to Judaism at all. But that's my very, 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 very simplified layman's understanding of it. And I think that actually works a little bit better because it doesn't run into these contradictions that these guys are running into, where this God is all just or all merciful. And well, there's the whole Jesus thing. We can just use that. None of these guys are willing to commit to the notion that Jesus saves everyone. That is a disgusting idea for most of them. And if you talk to them long enough and they tell you that what they're trying to do is, I love you and I'm trying to scare you to death about my God, and you come back at, well, isn't your God Jesus and didn't he die for absolutely everybody? Watch them sputter. Because when they want you to be afraid of their God, they're gonna hit the fire and brimstone tactics. When they talk about God's love, it's going to be about guilt. We shouldn't have treated him that way. The Romans did something terrible to him. The Jews got him executed. You need to feel bad because he came here to earth and humans spat on him and ridiculed him and tortured and executed him. So feel bad, sinner. But that's not the point of Christ. Jesus had to die. So why should I feel guilty about that? That was part of God's plan. So much for the love part in Darth Dawkins' ministry.
Leave this atheistic delusion behind and come to the truth.
All right, come on up, Raja.
I invited him up. He doesn't want to come up. Okay, let's see. Let's see if any other atheist has the balls to come up.
I don't like the way Enlightened talks. Like, let's see if these atheists have the balls to take on my God. Sure, they probably do, but are they going to get a chance to actually say anything? And what the fuck kind of conversation is that to have? Right? Like, are you going to come up here? You got the balls to say you're sorry to Jesus? Like, yeah, that's going to get me to run up there and ask for repentance real quick, bro. Sweet.
He's not going to come up. So sick of these freaking cowards, man.
You know, we have these atheists who start these rooms. Ask an atheist anything. and yet they're real bold when they have complete moderation. Right? Now, I don't like to strong arm in moderation when I'm talking with people, but sometimes I have to, because you know why? It's because they will rabbit trail the topic to death.
Yep. So
Well,
you're
Rabbit trail. They rabbit trail?
telling me there's no atheist that wants to come up and defend their position? Not
Why would any of them have to? This is the other thing that's happening now. More and more of these guys, and Darth kind of like inspires this in Ding Dongs. They're going to come out. You need to defend your atheism. Like this is, we do not live in an age where the church has any kind of sway. In fact, all the churches are basically doomed, right? People are fleeing from them. The only Christian group in the United States that's growing is populated by these weirdos. It's just wacko fundamentalist evangelicals. And yeah, they're wackos because they basically are people without any kind of real tradition. They're basically just fan fiction Christians. They read the Bible, they pick and choose on their stuff. Half the time you put a mixture of 6 to a dozen of these people in a room, watch them tear each other to pieces. They don't have a church or an orthodoxy or any kind of organization to actually kind of keep them in line. So they just blow up at each other and then ultimately just fall out, and then they find other groups and they just keep atomizing. It's been the history of the Christian church in this country forever because we have pluralism. You can just go and believe, you can choose to believe whatever you want. And that includes all these different variations of Christianity. But now these guys are saying, like, you come here, you defend your atheism to me. Like, dude, you seem to think, like, the reason these guys do this, they probably sit around listening to a lot of right-wing radio and, like, Prager University bullshit, tell everybody that we live in a Judeo-Christian culture, and you're like, oh, yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, who cares? Half that shit doesn't fly anyway, and you pick and choose from, like, from a menu what you think is Judeo-Christian values all the time. But they seem to think that because that's just sort of that's been the inertia at this point, that's the tradition. You have to stand up here and tell me why your crazy lack of belief actually fits. Not in a pluralist country. I don't have to defend shit. You asked me what I think, and I said I don't believe in God. Now you're flipping out. I want an argument that proves my God's fake. No, fuck off. If you want arguments for that, you can go talk to some philosophers. Guess what they're going to tell you? No, fuck off. Because it's a crazy thing to ask. Why don't you provide them a definitive argument for why your God's real and demonstrate it? And when you can do that, then maybe you've got room to bitch. But don't do this kind of crap where, well, this is America and it's a country given to us by God, and you need to prove that you belong here by defending your crazy atheism to me. That's a bunch of entitled bullshit. You're a fucking snowflake. You can gag on a bag of dicks.
a single one of you. Wow.
All we're looking for is an atheist that has a above 100 IQ.
Hey, Haiti.
All right, I'll be back since we don't have any atheists coming. Okay,
Yeah.
see, I reveal what my secret sauce is here. Okay, my goal is to humiliate the atheist worldview so they can come to realize that whatever their verbal denials are of God or the God of the Bible, it's based upon the fact that they're on the run from God, that they're trying to preserve their own sinful autonomy.
Right, because they never had their own worldview to begin with, right, Darth? It's all your worldview all the time. So again, why are you lying to everyone about worldviews?
Rather than bow the knee and receive salvation. But I'll be back.
See? You bow the knee, you get the prize. Why? Why did Jesus have to die for that? That's kind of how things were set up before. That's kind of what Judaism is. Approach the Torah in humility, pursue its knowledge, try to do what it says, wrestle with its words, contemplate the meaning of it, bend the knee. You get to go to heaven. Sounds like Judaism to me. Sounds like Islam to me. It doesn't sound like Christianity to me. Christianity, I thought, had something special going on. I thought it had the whole thing where Jesus reconciled his creation unto himself. And yet these ding-dongs cannot give up exclusive membership passes because power. If the message of Jesus is that everyone's saved and they don't have to talk about it. No one really has to. Paul was wrong. You don't have to go out and tell everybody. Jesus died for everybody. Ultimately, we're all going to end up okay. He's going to take care of it, if that story is true. But that's not the message that got out. The message that got out was more of the same. Bend the knee and get the win. That's it. Ask for the present, and it will be given to you. And then don't do anything bad anymore, or you might lose the present. That doesn't sound like, to me, it sounds like they're cheapening the salvation that Christ provided. But what do I know? I'm just a crazy atheist. All right. So let's get rid of that one. And let's share out this other one. This one is Darth Dawkins versus Soldier of Science. So, like I said before, we're not even at an hour yet. Thank you everybody for coming along. A little break in between here. Thank you very much. Since we're switching gears here and going into this other one, this I think is an older conversation that Darth had with a guy named Soldier of Science. I'm pretty sure I saw bits and pieces of this one before because I think it was on somebody else's channel. I think this is a few months old. And Tom, if Tom's still watching, he could probably confirm that in the chat if he wanted to. I'm not sure where this came from, but I think it's older. Anyway, it looks like, I'm not sure whose channel this was on because I'm pretty sure this is through a StreamYard, and more than likely this was done on YouTube. I think this might have been, if you can see it, the user in the upper left corner is Nephilim Free, who is kind of a crazy old guy. I've had conversations with him before. I use the word crazy a lot because I like it. He might be, and he's sort of in between a Mr. Batman, Darth Dawkins kind of territory himself. And so it's really Darth and Nephilim Free versus Soldier of Science. The other two kind of stay quiet throughout this thing. So I'm going to go through this a little bit. We'll see. We'll see what you think. Tom says I posted, then took it down and put it back up recently. Okay, so yeah, I must have saw it on his channel. I don't think I covered this one before. I think this predates into because I think I've been covering Tom's videos for about 6 months now. So I think this one's further back from that.
You are saying God does not and cannot exist because people's reasoning that God is faulty. That is.
Yeah. So Crafty. Yeah, I know. I noticed. I think he was on because when I jumped into, it wasn't your stream. I think it was Steven's Cider and Ports. Soldier of Science had jumped in there. I wanted to say hi to him, but I couldn't stay. But yeah, no, I think he does okay here. But I think there's places where he could do better. But if you're, I don't know if this was his first time talking with Darth, but if you are in a conversation with Darth, it's easy to kind of get it's easy to get pushed off track.
Is a fallacy. That is the genetic fallacy.
I didn't say cannot. I said I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, here's the position. Your position is that God does not exist. Now, if you want to argue that is not your, can you not overtalk me, please?
You haven't even let me say anything.
Would you not overtalk me, please?
There you go.
I'm asking you not to over. I'm asking you again, not
like at this point. This guy's not over talking him. Like they're clearly out of sync a little bit. All Darth has to do is just like maybe loosen his underwear or whatever. Well, I don't know what's going on, but apparently something is in a bind.
to overtalk me. All right.
I'll be back next
now.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Just raise your hand when you're ready for me to talk. How about that? Go ahead.
Now, are you going to stop over talking me? Thank you. Now, your position is that God does not exist. Is that correct?
Are you raising your hand? Okay, great. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
All
Listen
yes.
to me. If you're going to act like a teenage imbecile, Nephilim Free is going to kick you out of the room. Right?
It's Nephilim Free, not Nephilim Free.
Right? Now, I'm trying to be respectful of you. Now,
no, you aren't.
Is it your position? No, I'm assertive when people act like teenagers. Now, is it your position?
Let me finish one sentence.
Okay, you keep on over talking me. Is it your position that God does not exist?
I've said that like 3 times. Yes, that my
Good.
position is
God
yes,
does not.
God does
Okay.
not exist.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the question again, and please do not repeat your first answer because I demonstrated it is the genetic fallacy. Now,
no, it's not. So, like his first answer, I believe, was something like, and he gets into it a little bit again. His first answer was like, well, people make up gods. The definitions, the qualities, the properties, they're just things that we imagine and then we kind of project onto this being and then call it real. Darth is saying that notion is a genetic fallacy. Like that's not how a genetic fallacy. That's not a genetic fallacy because that's not how genetic fallacies work. Genetic fallacy is blaming the source of the argument rather than addressing the argument, right? Or trying to say like, well, it'd be like saying, well, sure, it was a great idea, but it came from this person that I dislike, so I'm not going to, I'm going to reject it. Right? That's a genetic fallacy. Darth has done this a lot, where he gets this fallacy wrong quite a bit, then ends up perpetrating it quite a bit himself later on.
God does not exist because.
So you want me to come up with a whole freaking different answer? God doesn't exist because we made up the attributes of what a God is. Period. Okay. That's it. That's my belief. Don't go into a whole philosophical argument of why my belief is faulty. Just accept that is my belief.
And how did you look? You're not understanding. I just corrected you 3 times. You are reiterating that your same opening statement. It is a fallacy. It's please do not over.
It's not a genetic fallacy for Darth Dawkins. I can't remember if I covered this or not. I'm sure other people have talked to about this. I don't know if he watches my channel. I know he says he doesn't care, and I'm inclined to believe him there. It's not a genetic fallacy. You need to look up what a genetic fallacy is because you're getting it wrong. He's not saying that because people are faulty and believe there are gods, we can therefore conclude that the idea of gods is faulty. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that gods are simply imaginary concepts. That's why he doesn't think they're real. He's not convinced they're actually real things. He just thinks they're creations of our imagination. And in a way, a collective imagination when you get into that kind of cultural inertia stuff. That is not a genetic fallacy.
Talk me. Please do not overtalk me.
And again, I do want to point this out too, because it bears repeating. One of the things that these guys usually get into, Darth is already getting upset because what Soldier of Science is not doing is providing an argument for why his God doesn't exist, why Darth's God doesn't exist. But Darth asked Soldier of Science why he doesn't believe in God. He's, well, you don't think there's a God. Why? And Soldier of Science told him one of the reasons why he's not inclined to believe that a God is real. Right? And Soldier of Science says this later on in the video. I believe he says he's got lots of different reasons, but that's the first one he gave Darth. Darth has a real problem with that. Like if he asks you why you don't believe and you tell him and he flips out about it, give him the Alex Malpass. You asked me what one of my reasons was, and I told you. If you want an argument for why I think God doesn't exist or an argument for why I think he's impossible, we might be here for a while, or I might have to get back with you. But you started out asking me why what I believe and why I believe that.
Would you mute him, please? Would you mute him, please? Now, you are repeating your opening answer. I explained to you that it is the genetic fallacy. Do you have a counter rebuttal?
No, I don't.
Then you have to drop it then.
Why? Why would I have to drop it?
Because I just showed you that it's a fallacy.
How does that prove that a God?
That's interesting. I think that's really interesting there. So Darth believes that if you show someone that something is fallacious, then they should give it up. He believes that for whatever reason, he believes that they're committed to that. I would be interested in finding out from Darth Dawkins why he thinks that's the case. Because Darth has used lots of fallacies to attempt to describe and attempt to defend his God, and he hasn't given those up. So it seems kind of odd that he's pushing this standard onto Soldier of Science.
Exists.
Okay, you're not understanding. Okay, wow. The lack
then-
of
and then
focus
answer my
is
question.
staggering
Go
here.
ahead.
Okay, would you please? I would appreciate it. I will
You
try
don't let me
the
finish the
best of my
sentence.
ability. I'm going to try to
Darth,
the best of my ability
Darth,
not
let
to
me respond. Let me
overtalk
please.
with you. No,
Darth,
I'm
you
going to
do-
keep
you
on
have,
talking.
though.
Nephilim,
You
would
do-
you
you
mute
have.
him, please?
Every
Would you
sentence.
mute this guy? Nephilim, are you there?
I don't know why he keeps calling him Nephilim. It's Nephilim.
This is why atheists don't join.
He's AFK.
This is why atheists do not join this channel. Is you,
Okay.
Darth? You haven't let me finish a sentence.
Are you high right now? Have you been using alcohol?
No, I haven't. Keep going.
Okay, then you're borderline psychotic here.
Yeah, if he asks, I think more people need to do this. I don't presume to be the person to pass off this, but if you get an opportunity to talk to this guy, and he asks you if you're high or if you've been drinking, just tell him you've been munching on his mama's box, right? Because he's not. Sorry, terrible thing, but like just say, yeah, I'm a little bit distracted because I just got done, nailing your mom. Because he's not going to give up, right? If you say no, I'm not. No, no weed, no smoke, no booze, no pills. I'm as sober as a late stage Johnny Cash. Yeah, he'll be like, oh, okay, you just must be an idiot then. Like, great move, Darth. Why did you even ask? Right? You're either drunk or you're stupid. Just like with your rhetoric, right? You're either lying to him or you're insane.
Okay.
Now, I want you to give me an answer of why what is ultimate is not personal. Appealing to faulty human reasoning that concludes, therefore, God is a...
He didn't appeal to human reasoning. He appealed to human imagination. He didn't say that people reach these conclusions and then there's a God and then they were wrong. And so if they were wrong about that, they must be wrong about everything. Therefore, there's no God. That would be kind of faulty reasoning on his part, but that's not what he said. He said he thinks the gods are imaginary concepts concocted by us. That's it. It's not a genetic fallacy. And now he's trying to squirm in this whole thing where his God, this ultimate thing, whatever it is, also has to be personal, which, keep in mind, Darth can't demonstrate. Outside of some rhetorical wriggling, there's really no way you can demonstrate an ultimate thing that is also quote unquote personal.
Fallacy. I've explained to you 4 times now why it's a fallacy.
Because you can posit any word for God, any single one.
Okay. Explain to me, apart from faulty human reasoning, why is it that do you know, or I'll change the question for you. Okay.
Well, you might as well, since you've already changed his position.
Do you know what is fundamental and ultimate, that is the source of all possibility and impossibility? Do you know what that is? And do you know that it is impersonal?
No, that's a great question. That's a great question.
But it's also an irrelevant one, because the interesting thing about this is, like, do you know what it is and do you know that it's impersonal? Well, if I don't know what it is, whether it's personal or impersonal really doesn't matter, because I don't know what it is. So he's just sort of reaching there. Also, the definition of what he's talking about doesn't really fit either, because let's say that you have a worldview in which somebody says that everything is grounded by truth or something like that, or a confluence of quantum fields or something like that. Well, then you do have an ultimate thing that's responsible, a foundation for absolutely everything, but it's not personal at all. Darth doesn't like that, because then you end up having just chaos. He doesn't like chaos, because then all of a sudden, like, well, on Tuesday I jumped to the moon, and on Wednesday I got cancer, and on Thursday I felt fine. Because for whatever reason, reality breaks down and sees nothing tracks anymore, because he's a weirdo. The idea that patterns emerge out of lots of different systems is something that's sort of lost on the guy. So he's stuck with this kind of medieval concept of reality that he's trying to force onto everyone else. Like, what is your definition of ultimate foundational, the source of all possibility and impossibility? I don't know what that is. Trying to say something is the source of all possibility and impossibility is kind of a contradictory thing automatically if you start looking at it. It's the source of possibility and possibility. So the source meaning that it can cause possibility, but it can cause not possibility. Like, what the fuck is that? It's just nonsense.
that really gets to the heart of it, because those are attributes that you've obviously defined, or that you've given to the God that you believe in. So I think that's
you're not focusing
I think that's
here.
the biggest.
I'm not talking about what my beliefs right now.
I thought you said you weren't going to
talking about is your position here.
I thought you said you weren't going to.
I'm not saying quantum fields are my position, Henry Hansen, nor do I think I'm even getting that phrase right. I'm just saying, let's say somebody said something like that, right? That there's some kind of naturalistic explanation that kind of grounds absolutely everything. People that have attempted to get close to that, Darth usually just loses his shit.
Overtalk me.
Okay, do you have a problem with overtalking?
You've been telling me not to overtalk for the last 5 seconds.
No, Darth Dawkins, you have a problem with overtalking because you've been stepping on on his statements at the beginning and at the end. Like this is funny. Like this guy keeps kicking somebody's shoes off as he's following around. Like why can't you keep your shoes on? Fucking obnoxious.
Because you haven't let me finish one fucking sentence, dude.
How old are you?
Can we just please?
I'm asking you a sincere question. I'm almost 60. How old are you?
Old enough to date your mom. Next question.
I'm 50 years old. I'm 50.
You're 50. You're 50 years old. I am truly shocked that a 15-year-old man like you is acting like a 15-year-old.
Because you haven't let me talk. If this is how you talk,
you're delusional. You are absolutely delusional. You are a delusional.
And yet you are going to continue talking to this guy for quite a long time. Why? If he's delusional or stupid or drunk or insane or immature or a pervert, a sinner, a reprobate, the list goes on and on. Like Darth can make a list of all the things he hates about Soldier of Science, but a question he can't answer is, why the hell are you still talking to this person you have no respect for? What the fuck is wrong with you?
50-year-old man.
Okay.
Let's start all over. Okay.
Do you feel better?
What is the topic? Okay. We're talking about your position that God does not exist. Now, since you don't know what is ultimate, then you cannot say, listen carefully, since you do not know what is ultimate, then you cannot say.
Nice.
You see, you're proving my point that you're.
See, Darth can't let that go. Nope. That's how dare you have fun at my expense.
50-year-old man who's acting like a 15-year-old on camera.
Embrace it.
This is why it is so difficult to converse with you atheists, because of the gross immaturity. Now, can we start all over, please? Now, since you don't know what is fundamental and ultimate, then how did you determine that what is ultimate is not personal? And please don't resort to telling me about faulty human reasoning.
What the hell kind of question? Because you don't know what's ultimate and you don't know that whether or not it's Of course not. Is that what he just asked?
Converse with you atheists because of the gross immaturity. Now, can we start all over, please? Now, since you don't know what is fundamental and ultimate, then how did you determine that what is ultimate is not personal? And
you couldn't, ding dong. What the fuck? I don't know what it is, but there has to be one. This is more of Darth trying to assert that everyone has an ultimate in their worldview. They just need to tell Darth what it is, or if they think that he needs them to spit out is that the ultimate is God, his God.
And please don't resort to telling me about faulty human reasoning. How did you determine that what is ultimate is not personal?
That's a great question. So how did I determine what is ultimate is not personal? I would just say, look at every other species on the world that didn't develop it into consciousness to realize that they have a personal being, such as your consciousness, to then formulate another being to say that thing must be personal as well. And what I would respond with is, even more so, it makes very little sense to me that if you believe in a personal ultimate being that existed for infinity before it ever decided to create an Earth, would then create a universe with an Earth to have humans, to have like the same logic principles as this being, right? I mean, to me, if I was being a rational human being and I said, and I believed in things such as, you know, evolution, and I looked at our closest relatives like the chimpanzee, and I go, you know what, if it is true that we've evolved from these chimpanzees and apes, and maybe our brain capacity has now moved into consciousness, and so maybe we're, I don't know, 1,000 times smart. I'm just throwing an arbitrary number out there. We're 1,000 times smarter than these chimps that we can't even talk to yet. But we've made up an entire God that has the same logic structure as we do as beings. Seems just ridiculous to me, to be honest with you. I would honestly think that if you came up with, even if it is a personal, intelligent being God, I would think that any modern day science fiction writer could come up with a way better one than the guys who did it 3,000 years ago. I think it literally shows that people from 3,000 years ago created this God because they created with the same logic structure. To me, that
also you have to have accepted certain kind of concepts that people universally agree with in order to make the God something that people can grasp. So, I mean, he's not far off here in terms of I mean, you can make a relatively convincing argument for, like, I think that gods are just conceptual, because consider how this God is described. He's described basically like a person, but with extra abilities. That's essentially all it is. And then somebody's like, no, not just extra abilities. The greatest of abilities. Fine. What the hell ever. But it's still just a person, right? And in terms of the way that it ends up getting written about, depending on the kind of God it is, it's either a wise man, a wise woman, a father, a mother, a king, a warrior. You know, these are human archetypes. They're either, you know, they're based on roles that people have in society, and they build up from there. Darth Dawkins' God is a judge and warrior archetype. That's the kind of God he believes in. The one that will mete out justice. No one will escape. No naughty people are getting away from that guy. This isn't like our feeble human courts where, you know, those liberal tree huggers let these people get away and commit crimes again. Nope, God's a law and order God. Right? So, well, how do you know that, Darth? What does law and order to a God like that? So we already use concepts, human concepts, to try to define what this being is. And now Darth's here like, no, I want you to tell me what you think is ultimate. Well, ultimate doesn't mean anything on its own. If you want to say it's foundational doesn't necessarily mean foundational to what? Reality, space-time, reality and space-time. Those could be different things. Like you gotta pick a lane, Darth.
That is ridiculous. So that's my answer.
I didn't hear a clear answer of how you specifically determined what is eternal and ultimate, and that it is impersonal. Could you give me in one sentence a clear answer how you determined what specifically is eternal?
How do I determine what is eternal?
How would a human being determine something atemporal? How would you even begin to go about doing that? Now, they'll do that because they'll just define it into existence and say there has to be something atemporal that existed outside of time in order to make time, right? Kind of a sloppy kind of contingency argument kind of thing. Well, space and time exist, but space and time probably needed to be created by something that wasn't confined by space and time, so there's a God that exists outside of space and atemporally. It's eternal. There, demonstrated. Okay, but you just defined it. It's just defined into existence. Darth Dawkins cannot demonstrate that thing, and he didn't determine it. It was defined that way. And anyway, you could do that for any being that you want to deposit and define into existence.
I would honestly say I have no idea how to determine what is eternal, and I don't see how a religious person could either.
That's all right. I got paid. Well, the fact that you are incredulous is a second issue which we can discuss.
Okay.
So you don't know what is eternal and ultimate, but you know it's not personal.
I don't know if there is anything that's ultimate, right? And I don't know if there is something that's ultimate, whether it's personal or not personal. It's
not God, right?
No, I never said I don't know. I said I don't believe.
Okay, so do you
I said I don't.
That's an interesting caveat. That's an interesting way of doing it, because now, but this is where things get a little bit dangerous, and this is where Darth could stand to be a little bit more clear when he's asking people this. So if he wanted to know what Soldier of Science believes, Soldier is saying that this is why I believe that there isn't a God, right? He's already fulfilled that part. But Darth has moved him into a discussion. He wants an argument for why God doesn't exist. And he hasn't actually come right out and said that's what he's looking for. He's just asking, he's going through his interrogation stick. And Soldier of Science, like many, many other people, are kind of left in that position of like, what's wrong with this guy? What the hell is he going on about? And there is a difference between what you believe and know to a certain extent. And there is also a difference between your stances in terms of your psychological state of disbelief. We talk about it as sort of like the Lactheus kind of stance, and then the kind of harder stances where you might have a something of your own argument for why maybe specifically the Abrahamic gods don't exist or something like that. But for the purposes of what he's talking about here, Soldier has given an answer, and Darth is now insisting that Soldier demonstrate how something Darth believes is necessary for a worldview to be true is actual. And really, Soldier doesn't even have to commit to it. He could just be like, my worldview doesn't have anything like that. I don't know what you're talking about. And if Darth insists, like, well, then it has to, then it just falls apart. Nope, it falls apart under your worldview, but not in mine. And then if Darth says, well, that's impossible, you're lazy and crazy and you're immature. Okay, we'll demonstrate why my worldview falls apart without your absolute ultimate foundation. You have said that that's necessary for your worldview. I'm telling you it's not necessary for my worldview. You need to demonstrate how it's not, how that falls apart within my worldview, not within yours. In your worldview, it just falls apart definitionally, which is all Darth is appealing to, which is why he's lying about worldviews.
Do you believe? All right, listen carefully. So here we go again. I want the audience to know this is the verbal kabuki dance. Please don't interrupt me, because I listened for a long period of time silent while you were giving your community college lecture. Now,
Thank you.
This is I want the audience to realize what we hit here is a debate and switch here. He did not answer the question at all. He delivered a mini community college lecture that dodged and danced. Now, what I want to know from you is, 1 minute you're saying there is no God. The next minute you're saying you don't know. You are flipping and flopping between metaphysical positions.
Not necessarily. I mean, you can say that you don't believe in God. That's a different thing than saying I know there isn't one. I don't see why that's impossible, right? I don't believe that there's a Bigfoot. I don't know for a fact that he doesn't actually exist, though. There's a different epistemological commitment to both of those things. Darth knows that too.
Is it your position that what is eternal and ultimate is not personal and therefore a God? This
is so dumb. He's literally asking him to, like, hey, I want you to talk about this personal, impersonal thing for something that I haven't heard Soldier of Science commit one way or the other to an ultimate anything. And the fact that Darth is still trying to leverage the same crap question is astonishingly stupid, even on his terms.
I would say that I have not researched whether there's something ultimate, and so therefore I don't believe that there's something that's ultimate, because I have no idea what the definition of ultimate means. To be honest with you, Darth.
Okay, I'll give it to you if you like.
I don't know what it means.
It's actually very simple.
Okay.
It isn't.
Ultimate is that which is eternal, unconditionally non-dependent, and the source and basis of all possibility and impossibility.
Okay, what he's trying to do here is basically say that basically that's three different arguments. That's what makes a God ultimate, right? It satisfies the modal ontological argument, right? God is either necessary or impossible. It's necessary, right? So it takes care of that one. And then it's also the contingency argument. Everything's contingent, except for the one fact that's not contingent, which is God. And then on top of that, you can add in essentially kind of the inference of the best explanation, in a way, is sort of getting thrown in there. You don't have a better explanation for how this is thus and so. Therefore, this God must make it thus and so. So, checkmate, atheists and losers. The problem with this is that he's now in a position. He's just smoothied some arguments together in a way that makes all of them worse. and makes him really imprecise about discussing any of these kinds of things. And it really doesn't get to the core of what he's talking about, because he's just decided that what ultimate is the God as defined as in those kinds of arguments rolled into one. And that's and it's necessary, and it's all powerful, and it just has to be the case that that's what started everything. Cool. How? It's the easiest question to ask. How does that? How do you get there outside of the argument, where the argument defines what this thing is? What makes you think that that's being demonstrated in real life? I think Darth would have to go with general revelation, creation itself, and then special revelation. The problem with that is the special revelation especially has narratives within it that contradict the properties that Darth is saying God has.
Now, do you assert that what is ultimate is not God, personally?
Yeah, I assert that, because I don't see how, even with your definition, right, you could still give those same attributes, which you agree, man came up with those attributes to define. You just gave those to me, right? I mean, it wasn't like a God came down and told you that was the attributes of what ultimate is. So let me finish.
You're not focusing.
I am focusing. I'm giving you.
No,
I'm telling you. I'm telling you that man came up with those attributes. So you decided on a definition.
You're segueing away on a semi-related topic. You're not focusing on my question. My question is very truncated and very circumspect.
Truncated and circumspect. No, they're not. Your question is vague, poorly defined, and you are shotgunning an enormous amount of poorly comprehended philosophical concepts that you have just breech loaded into this thing, and not told him what you're doing. Like this is like a Trojan horse argument, but the Trojan horse is filled with dynamite or something. Like, it's just so fun. It's just basically dishonest. It's insane. If he was capable of being honest and having a real discussion, he could break this stuff down, but he's not. He's hiding behind these vague generalities, and he's not going to break down the fact that the God that he's defining is just an amalgamation of the God posited in multiple defense arguments for God, crapped into one. He's not going to do that, because then he doesn't want somebody pointing out definitionally like, nope, you're getting the modal ontological argument wrong. This is where you screwed that up. Nope, the contingency argument doesn't work that way either, because these guys, these people broke that down. So that doesn't work either. And that's just an inference to the best explanation. So what else you got? Then he'll ask you how old you are and if you've been drinking.
Now, you assert that, well, okay, have you, okay, you don't know whether or not anything is ultimate?
No.
Okay, so you don't know is ultimate. Then if you don't know whether or not anything at all is ultimate, then you...
just a reality check. According to Darth's worldview, he also doesn't know what is ultimate. God is ultimate. God knows all and knows the ultimate. And because that's a thing, then we can rest assured that that's enough. Darth has not been able to demonstrate the real connection here, right? That I know a God that's omniscient, therefore I can know that it's telling me things for certain, right? On top of the fact that he just skips right past the whole Cartesian demon aspect of that, and in a really weird way too. The other issue with this is that he doesn't point out, he seems to have real trouble pointing out how the ontology of a being that exists in that way leads to his epistemology exactly matching it. I know what's ultimate, therefore I can be right about things. That doesn't follow at all.
You cannot hold to the position that there is no God, which would be defined as what is ultimate. So you are undecided as to whether or not anything is ultimate?
Yes, I'm undecided.
Then that would mean that you're undecided about the existence of God as well.
Well, even if you could prove to me that God exists, right? I'm not saying that
you're not
can't.
focusing on what I'm saying to you. You're talking past me.
I've already answered.
asked
I've
you a
answered your
question. You're
and
not
I've
focusing.
answered that. I answered
You're
it.
not focused.
You're not focused. Now he's saying you're not focusing. His question is not focused for the reasons I would say. He's got this weird Frankenstein's monster of a question that he's asking. That is not a focused question. He's not interested in having a real discussion about philosophy. He's just trying to trick and trap somebody into this with this weird rhetorical flourish, like he always does. And this is like classic stuff. So I'll probably speed this one up a little bit because they kind of get stuck on this for a little bit. But I want to make it to the point where Nephilim, for whatever reason, Darth, I think they mute Soldier of Science. Darth just stays quiet. Nephilim goes on this rambling explanation. And I wanted to get to that point because Nephilim's an interesting person to introduce, especially to anybody who's not already familiar with him. Most of you probably are, because he has hung out with Darth Dawkins before in the past, other than this.
Right? I asked you a question, right? You just told me that you're undecided as to whether or not
Jefferson Spatchcock. Darth does not contradict the God of the Bible. Yes, he does. Darth believes that God is all just, but doesn't seem to think that God must be all merciful. That's a contradiction. And Darth has explained this. He believes that in order to clear up that inconsistency, that's why Jesus is around. Because Jesus then takes the punishment for man, so now God can be all merciful through Jesus' sacrifice while also being all judgy all the time too. But what Jesus provides, depending on the type of Christian you are, is not exactly mercy. If you believe that God is all merciful, then it follows that Jesus' salvation must cover everyone. It must save absolutely everyone. And if he's really merciful, it should save them regardless of their belief state, right? The idea that they have to acknowledge the salvation, acknowledge that sacrifice, and then they get saved doesn't make sense. That doesn't follow it. Most Christians contradict God, their Christian God, in this very basic way. It's a contradiction from the jump.
something is ultimate. But earlier in the conversation, you asserted that there is no God. God is in the category.
God is merciful to those that surrender and receive Christ as Lord and Savior. Yes, but when it says that God is all merciful, it doesn't say that God is all conditionally merciful. Those are conditions that people have to satisfy. This amazes me. When people talk about their loved ones being thrown into the fiery pit, right? It's because Christians justify this kind of stuff because God must punish, because he is all just. But they fail to follow that inevitability on the other side of his nature, the merciful part. They bring up this nonsense. Oh, he'll forgive you but he'll judge you regardless. That's not conditional. You are going to hell in the Christian worldview. You're not getting out of that, but you get out of it if you acknowledge that Jesus did something for you. That's not mercy. That's a payoff. Jesus died to fulfill the punishment that we need, which means God didn't save, he didn't forgive people. He punished himself for it instead. Contradiction.
Of what would be designated to be ultimate. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. If you do not know, may I finish, please? Okay. If you do not know whether or not anything is ultimate, then you cannot be in a position to say that there is no God, because God is in the category of what is ultimate. So you need to decide which position you hold to, okay? You will either hold to the position, I do not believe or know that anything is or is not ultimate, or you're going to have to hold to the position that there is no God as what is ultimate. You cannot hold to both positions.
You're correct on that point, but you're also giving a false statement because you're presenting two finales where there could be multiple. Just like I said to you, would thousands of gods be in what's considered ultimate? Wouldn't ultimate apply to?
You're not focusing.
Wouldn't ultimate?
Yeah, now Darth is going to get into the whole pitch where no, you can only have one ultimate thing, which is not true. We are all on the road to hell, but God will be merciful for those that receive forgiveness for what Christ did on the cross. No contradiction. Yes, it is. Rewind and listen to my previous explanation. The salvation, if God can die for all sins, that means he did die for all sins because he's a God. The idea that it's conditional based on human belief or acceptance is not merciful. It's a conditional reward. And so you're changing things. Again, Christians have no problem emphasizing that God will punish everybody, but he only forgives a select few that get it right. That's a problem if you believe God is all merciful and all just.
Completely
There can only be one ultimate.
Please don't interfere. You're not.
Also, that's a cop-out. Mercy and forgiveness is offered to all people. Not all will accept the offer. If I save your life and you're passed out on a mountain, I don't need you to accept the fact that I'm going to save you. That doesn't make sense. But the idea that people have to choose a God in advance also doesn't make sense, because God probably would have learned, if he can, from the issue that he had with Adam and Eve at the beginning, or all the covenant relationships he had with the people of Israel beforehand. Leaving them in a position to get things right and to choose was exactly what led us down the wrong path, which is why Jesus shows up and takes care of all of that, reconciles creation, and everyone is saved. That makes sense. That squares that. But the way Christians end up doing it, where it has to be based on like your choice and your actions, your thoughts, your belief, that's bullshit. That's Old Testament thinking. That's just a way to make the cult exclusive and to judge people in the here and now for not living up to quote unquote Christian standards, which are amorphous, constantly changing. Just depends on the denomination you end up in.
Please hold on.
How did you determine there could only be one ultimate?
Soldier, I will repeat again what I just said to you. Okay,
I told you it's a false dichotomy.
Okay, you are not focusing. Okay, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Either you're going to have to hold to.
If you keep treating me like you're my parent, we're just going to end.
No, I'm not treating you like a parent. Your reasoning is appallingly bad, and I'm trying to correct you. But you're
presenting a false dichotomy.
Okay, now your position is either you don't know whether or not there's anything ultimate. Now, if you say it's not a false dichotomy, and I'm going to show you why it isn't, right? Your position is that there is no God. God is within the category of what would be designated to be ultimate. If you don't know whether or not anything is ultimate, then you will not be in a position to say no God, because God would be designated as an ultimate. So you have to pick one or the other.
I disagree with that.
Okay, well, then the problem here is you're not understanding. It's not a false statement.
I do understand. I understand exactly what you're saying, but you're positing it either has to be this or X equals God. No, X could equal thousands of gods. Like I told you before, X could equal no gods, and the universe is eternal.
Soldier, you're not focusing. Okay.
My response is, instead of using the word God to me, posit it with anything. Posit it with anything,
Soldier,
and your statement holds true. Your statement is the same statement.
You're talking past me. You're not focusing on what I'm saying to you in the question.
I've answered.
Is it your position? Is it your position that God, as a personal ultimate, does not exist? Yes or no?
Yes, that is my position.
Okay. So you have knowledge as to what is ultimate?
I have a belief, right?
I didn't ask.
I don't have knowledge. I don't have knowledge.
Okay.
I don't have knowledge. Okay. This is my
belief. Do you believe?
He's doing it again.
Something that is ultimate.
He's doing it again. Like if Darth wants this guy to get, if he wants Soldier to get into a discussion and try to like lay out some kind of argument for what he can show or demonstrate or prove or defend or whatever, he needs to quit asking him about these beliefs. He just does, right? Now, maybe in a Christian circle, that's enough. You go out and ask a Christian, hey, do you believe in God? Yes, I do. Okay, great. Oh, do you believe in God? Nope. Oh, really? Defend yourself, sir. Defend your claim. No. You defend yours. Why do you believe in Jesus? Why Jesus and not something else? Why is there a God rather than not one in your worldview? What makes it so, or necessary if you're inclined to think that way?
I think this is where I have. Hold on. No. I think this is where I have a problem with the question, because you're saying something as ultimate. So something could be the universe. If you put the universe.
Going to interrupt Soldier here. I'm highlighting Red Fang's claim. Red Fang, I don't agree with you on this, but there are a lot of Jesus mythicists out there. I'm highlighting your claim, your comment, because I know it's probably triggering the hell out of Theos, if I'm pronouncing his name right. So carry on, sir. Carry on. And no, God does not force his forgiveness on people. Hell is not full of people that God rejected. How many times have you forced forgiveness on another person, Theos? Can you forcibly forgive somebody? Is that a thing? Do you need, in order for you to forgive someone, do you need them to acknowledge it in order for it to work? I find this odd because God seems to be incapable of his forgiveness is limited to people accepting it and then handing him back a thank you note. It's sort of like, I'll give Christmas cards, but only to people that send me, I'll give people Christmas gifts as long as they acknowledge my generosity with a thank you card later on. Those that don't will cease to get gifts. This seems to be the kind of God that you're positing here. And again, he's not forcing his forgiveness on people, right? If God's willing to forgive people and they don't even know what he is, they're not even inclined to think he's real. How much more forgiving is that? How much greater is God's forgiveness that he forgives the sins of people who don't even realize that there's a God or just blinkered about it? Answer me that.
Universe
You need
into
to
that
focus
category?
on my question, soldier.
Let me answer, Darth. Let me answer. I'm asking you, can the universe be put into that ultimate category under your description?
What I believe is not relevant to the question. What you need to do is answer the question. Do you believe that something is ultimate?
Yep. Under your definition, yes. Maybe the universe.
Now you contradicted you. Now, so before you just said you don't have a belief as to whether or not there's something ultimate.
So is your goal right now to get me to
are you contradicting yourself, soldier?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
My goal.
He's referring to a God. So I'm trying to get him to clarify. I'm trying to get him.
Well, first of all, I haven't asserted to you anything about my metaphysical beliefs. What we're discussing right now, and this is why I have criticized you a number of times in the conversation, that you're not focusing, right? The issue at hand is your.
Hang on a second, because Darth is really. I mean, this is. I forgot how he's just repeating himself. They're just going in a circle here. Look out for number one. Asks, when you mention God, who are you talking about inside the so-called Trinity? All three and none, and all of them and one of them, right? Because the Trinity is a mystery at its best explanation from any Christian. Some of them get into like these long, drawn out kind of defenses of it, because people will try to attack the concept of it as if it's crazy. I think in most cases, like Catholic dogma, and I think even Eastern Orthodox dogma, it's just considered a mystery. So God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So I'm willing to play with all three entities if that's where Christians, that's the field that we have. Those are the rules that we're dealing with. There are these three entities. This notion that they're talking about, right? So like if you make them all Jesus, things get tricky when you start wording it that way. It was one of my favorite things. Pine Creek would do this, and actually I don't know if he was the first one to do it, if he got it from a Muslim apologist who basically was like, he was talking to some Christian apologists and he was talking about how Jesus killed people in the Old Testament, and they were like, no, that was the God of the Old Testament, that was Yahweh. And he's like, yeah, it's the same person in a Christian view. Jesus is Jesus is God. So Jesus was doing, and they, to watch them like dance around that was great. Pine Creek kind of started imitating that. So if you think about this, if you think about the Trinity from that perspective, what Theos is basically saying is that, God won't force his forgiveness upon people, right? But what he did was he turned himself into a human being to suffer and die as a sacrifice for everybody's sins, but it only works if they acknowledge that he did it. If you're a Gnostic and you believe in kind of a weird dualism where there's a bad God and a good God, and the good God, Jesus, saves people from the judgment of the bad God, Yahweh, the story makes more sense. The story makes less sense if you get into the traditional, the kind of Christian view of it, where God is dying for himself to achieve a kind of closure with himself. It's very odd. But the idea that even after that enormous self-sacrifice, which we're supposed to acknowledge is just this amazing thing, he died for us, even though he can't die. That's another issue. You have to accept it. Otherwise, the salvation doesn't work. So in that case, my issue with it, when I talk about that kind of salvation thing, is I guess the emphasis I would put on it with Christians is I'm talking about Jesus. Because if they're going to talk about his salvation, his grace, his forgiveness, his loving kindness, it has limits. It has conditions. It comes with there's a password at the door. And that's the part that Christians won't let go because it makes it exclusive.
Position that you believe that there's no God, right? Now, telling me that people have faulty reasoning by which they come to the conclusion that there's a God, that's a non sequitur. In philosophy, that means it does not follow. It does not logically and necessarily follow that people's reasoning is faulty, that therefore what is ultimate is impersonal. So I'd like for you to tell me, how did you determine that what is ultimate is impersonal?
So no personal being which you've given the attribute ultimate to has ever shown itself to me, or anybody for that matter.
Okay,
So
that's a non sequitur, what you just said.
You asked how did I determine? I've given you several reasons. I've given you several.
Okay.
I've explained.
I know, soldier, let me respond a little. I know lots of people who say he's revealed himself to them. I'm one.
This is weird.
Yeah. So because he's not revealed himself to you, or let's assume that statement is true, that God has not revealed himself to you. But others, when you say he hasn't revealed himself to anyone, that's you're making a claim you can't substantiate there, because there's a lot of people who say God has revealed himself to them, and I'm one of them.
Soldier. The fact that you believe,
like the extra condescension, and patronizing tone in Darth Dawkins' voice and talking with Soldier just makes me want to like slap him. But Nephilim is getting this wrong again. If the notion here is that God didn't reveal himself to me, therefore there is no God, was the argument Soldier was making. Yes, that doesn't hold up. But the question that was asked was, why don't you believe there's a God? Well, the reason I don't believe in a God is that I've never met him. He's never talked to me. There's nothing wrong with that in terms of belief. He's not asserting that that he knows there isn't one, and he's concluding that from the fact that he's never seen it. That'd be like saying, I have never seen a black swan, therefore there are no black swans. But that's not what he's saying here. Like, do you think there are black swans? Personally, I've never seen one, so I don't think that they are real. I don't know that they're not. It's different epistemological commitments here. And Darth and Nephilim do not get this.
Believe that what is ultimate and personal has not communicated to you. It does not logically and necessarily follow that therefore what is personal ultimate does not exist. So what you have the rationale that you gave, the second rationale that you gave for the falsity of God, that too is what we call a non sequitur. Okay? A non sequitur is something that does not logically and necessarily follow.
Which is not what's happening here. It's not a non sequitur when someone says, do you believe? And they're like, no, what's one of your reasons? I've never seen it. That is a perfectly justified reason for not believing in something. It would be a non sequitur if he said, I've never seen it, therefore it's not real. That's a different commitment. That's a different claim. Then he would be engaging in a non sequitur. But between Darth and Nephilim, they haven't been able to nail this down, and they should have been able to do this within about a minute.
I'll ask you a question. Could we have a worldview where there is a personal absolute creator who creates the world, but does not engage in revelation? Is that logically consistent?
It's logical. You could believe anything, and it's logical.
Okay, hold on.
It's logical.
You're not understanding. You're not understanding. Is it internally logically consistent? I'm not asking you if it's true. Is it internally logically consistent that in a world where there is a personal absolute creator, that he constructs a world, but that he does not engage in revelation? Is that logically consistent?
I don't see what one has to do with the other, to be honest. I don't even see why you.
I'd like an answer to the question.
I'm trying to think about your question. I really don't honestly see what it giving revelation to people or not. What does that have to do with whether?
What you're saying is that the only way that there could be a personal absolute creator is if and only if that creator engages in revelation. That is a non sequitur. That does not follow.
Can I be honest with you? Every time I give you a reason, then you want me to come up with another reason because you were unwilling to accept my other reason. So we haven't had like an actual conversation.
That's because Darth is going to continue to do what he's always done. I'm going to ask you your reason for why you don't believe in God, and then turn that into, you made an argument that because I don't think there is a God, or because I think people made it up, therefore there isn't a God. He's just twisting your words into something else. So if Soldier ever has a conversation with him, well, this has been months ago, so he probably has talked to him. But yeah, anybody else that has a conversation with him, if he asks you about this, Malpass caught him on this and got him quick. And Malpass is super nice, so he caught him quick with it. And he's like, "Well, you didn't ask me for an argument. You asked me for what I believe, and I gave you a reason for the belief." And Darth, he just changed course, didn't even acknowledge that he fucked up, didn't acknowledge what he did wrong, proceeded to ask other dumb questions instead. But he got off that track. He wouldn't go down. He didn't even ask Malpass if he was wrong in asking that question or anything. He just immediately changed course. Darth knows that he's fucking up here. He knows that this is dishonest because he's a scumbag.
Where I've told you 20 different reasons of why I don't believe there's
That's probably not the best argument. Darth is wrong because he's a scumbag.
Non-personal.
Okay,
I've given you two.
For anybody who's having arguments in the live chat about ad hom, that's probably, yeah, I probably committed ad hom. Darth is wrong. Darth is a scumbag, therefore Darth is wrong all the time. I will not be challenged.
Given you two.
Yeah, and have I not shown you that they are fallacious?
No, you haven't, because like I said before, and you didn't answer.
Did I tell you it was a non sequitur?
You can use whatever word you like, but I think the audience.
It's a non sequitur if you keep fucking it up, Darth. Sure.
Well, really, I think the audience will see.
Does it logically? All right, I'll ask you. I'll demonstrate to you right now.
You never even answered my first question, Darth.
I'll demonstrate to you.
You didn't answer the first one that you promised to.
I will demonstrate to you and the audience right now how what you just said is fallacious. Now, does it logically and necessarily follow that in a world where what is personal and absolute would necessarily engage in revelation?
No, it doesn't. That's not logical.
Good. You now contradicted yourself.
No.
I don't understand that. Why would it be a contradiction based on absoluteness in this particular thing isn't really well defined. So, and revelatory in what way? If revelation counts as the things this thing makes, then yeah, then it necessarily follows that if a creator reveals itself through its creation, then yes, automatically it reveals itself because it created things, right? But that seems like an unnecessary thing to even mention. So Darth is wasting time here.
Because you could have a being that's personal and be here every day, right? It doesn't have to reveal itself through revelation. If you have a personal being, it could literally be here every single day.
Soldier, you're not focusing
with or without revelation.
You're not focusing on what I'm saying to you.
Okay? I have
your argument. Your argument is this. Your argument was this. You stated that what is personal and absolute cannot and does not exist because you have not received revelation. Is that your position?
That was one of probably 30 different reasons I have. You're just attacking one at a time. You're attacking one at a time.
Was that your last reason?
Yes, that was my last reason.
Does it logically and necessarily follow? Does it logically and necessarily follow that if there was a personal ultimate creator, that creator would necessarily engage in revelation?
It depends on how you're defining revelation. If creation, which for Christians counts, general revelation is creation itself. So it follows that then yes, he does have to do that. But Darth's not defining these terms as usual.
Necessarily engage in revelation. No, it doesn't necessarily have to engage in revelation.
Okay, well then your reasoning. Let me just wrap this up here. Then your reasoning that you gave is fallacious because you said you have. Can you, if you're a 50-year-old man, can you act like a 50-year-old man, please? Now, you stated.
How should a 50-year-old man act? Oh, right. A 50-year-old man should be doing your mom, Darth. I'll be here all night, folks.
There is no God. There is no personal absolute because you have not received revelation. That original statement that you made just contradicted what you just said because I asked you, does it logically and necessarily follow if there's a personal absolute creator that creator will engage in revelation? You said, no, it doesn't follow. That completely contradicts your previous statement that there is no God because you didn't receive revelation. So you have contradicted yourself.
Okay, that seems a little fucked up. But he also wasn't. He didn't actually. Soldier never really actually committed to what an ultimate was, or personal things. And now Darth seems to be trying to get to Soldier at something like it wasn't enough that he couldn't get Soldier to admit to the ultimate thing. So he goes to personal, and then he can't get him to commit to like a personal, impersonal kind of thing because what the fuck is Darth talking about? And now it's revelation. Now he's trying to get at him that, okay, now we'll get from revelation to personal to ultimate. Now, okay, no, all right, okay. If you provide Darth with exactly what he wants and just be like, you know what, let's just assume that your God is real. So let's deal with the worldview that you agree is real, a worldview where God created everything, etc. Then talk about that. Then ask him about that whole mercy crap, God being all merciful and all just. Point out contradictions in God's nature. point out the catastrophic aspects of this being having all great making properties like omniscience, omnipotence, and omnibenevolence. There's lots of single property disproofs and multiple property disproofs for God, and there's different there's sort of different atheologies as well. You can kind of go with the deductive ones or inductive ones. And if anybody's interested in that, go check out the Internet Encyclopedia Philosophy's entry on atheism. It has it's not a long one, but it has a pretty good rundown of it. Some people might quibble over like the kind of basic definition of atheism that it gives at the beginning, but I think it gives a pretty good run through. And then it goes through things like deductive atheology, inductive atheology, disproofs, that kind of stuff. It's kind of handy. And it might point you towards different philosophers that you might be kind of interested in reading about. But yeah, for most of this stuff, I mean, I think Darth, I'm getting kind of weary with this one.
Soldier, right, consider this also. It's possible, logically possible, that God has revealed himself to lots of people, but not you personally. That wouldn't be a verification that he doesn't exist. It's completely possible that God exists and has revealed himself to many people, but not to you, for one reason.
Right, and it would follow from there, right? That's a reason he doesn't believe in it. If he was stipulating that that there is no God because I haven't seen him, that would be these guys aren't even keeping track of what they're correcting Soldier on.
Bingo, now we could speculate as to, well, lots of people even we could speculate as to why that's so, but it doesn't logically follow that God doesn't exist because he hasn't revealed himself to you.
Okay, so Soldier, if you realize I just laid out in clear terms, okay, I methodically laid out how you contradicted yourself.
However, I think God has revealed himself to everyone.
Darth, you didn't ask the question that because of my belief equates to God not being there, right? You asked what is one of mine? What is one of my reasons? It doesn't mean that because I am not getting revelation, therefore God must exist. That makes no sense at all. That makes zero sense. Really, what the logical conclusion would be that A, God could exist and he's just not revealing himself to me, or B, God doesn't exist and that's why he's not revealing himself to me. Right. But your question was to me, what do I believe?
Okay, good.
And I said one of the reasons is because of revelation. That's not a logical contradiction. I mean, that's not a contradiction. Because God hasn't revealed himself to me doesn't equate, well, then that means God exists. And that's what you're trying to say. And that's
Soldier,
that's wrong. That's
I'm
wrong.
I'm gonna be very blunt, okay? I'm gonna be very blunt, right? Your dialogue with me here today, what you just said, is borderline schizophrenic. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he thinks that that's schizophrenic is actually kind of astounding to me. Like, the Soldier basically just laid out exactly what I was talking about, right? Like, it could be that there is a God, that could be that there's not a God. I'm being asked what I believe, and I'm saying one of my reasons for disbelief is that I haven't seen this God. I'm not saying that God doesn't exist because I haven't seen it. And Darth's still not getting this.
Right.
Darth, you're not focusing. You need to focus.
You are. I have been very painstakingly careful and methodically.
You have not been careful and you have not been methodical. If you were, you would have paid attention to the statement that he just made, and you would have asked him to reiterate it, and you would have asked follow-up questions to track what he's talking about. That's not difficult stuff. That kind of plotting out what Soldier Science was saying there is not difficult. And Darth is now treating it like the ramblings of a schizophrenic. Darth Dawkins is an idiot. Like, this conversation is a great one because it really does demonstrate that this man is not that bright.
You're working through this. Is it your position that because you have not received revelation, that therefore it logically and necessarily follows what is ultimate is not personal?
That would be one of 30, right? Okay. That would be a position, but that doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. Your question is, what do I believe? Your question is, what do I believe?
The conversation really can't go. Listen, the conversation really can't go on much longer, is because your responses bear no resemblance in terms of coherence and in terms of focus to what I'm saying to you. You're just rambling at a rapid way.
If you think he's just rambling, it's because you are not paying attention and you are not focusing, Darth, and neither is Nephilim.
You're completely unfocused.
Here's an assertion I would make. I would make, and many Christians make this assertion. I understand the atheists are going to have a problem with it.
Here we go.
And then they appeal to methodological naturalism and evolutionism, and even naturalism. But my assertion is this, and Scripture bears it out. Scripture actually says this, and I believe it's true, that everyone knows that God exists, and some suppress it in
Ugh.
unrighteousness because they don't want
Yeah, how?
to feel guilty before a holy God. They don't want to feel responsible.
Okay, so they don't want to feel good. So doubt's not a thing? This is an interesting omission that Christians bring up, especially Christians like Nephilim and Darth Dawkins, right? Like you're just denying that God exists because you don't want to feel bad. You don't want to feel guilty. You want to keep doing the bad things and you don't want anybody to judge you. Need. Where'd doubt come in? So there's no such, if you believe this standard, then anything that it says, anything in the Bible that talks about a Christian doubting anything should basically be just struck through. Because doubt doesn't exist. We have to take Paul as the word of God. What Paul said about this is objectively true. Everyone knows, but some people lie about it. Some people, they don't want to accept it. So there's no such thing as doubt. Need.
They don't want to feel that guilt. That's a little pain, and they don't want to feel that little emotional, self-chastising pain. So they bow out by saying God doesn't even exist, and that fixes it for them, or at least they think so. And I think the way that God has revealed himself to everyone, in one of the ways that he has done that is the creation itself, the world in which we live. I think it's rational and logical that as a person moves and acts in this world, they experience and recognize that the world in which they live is of a level of complexity, beauty, and interdependence that bespeaks of a creator. That it's
unless someone's dying,
not its own explanation for itself. And here's one of the things that I think is interesting about that.
Okay, here we go.
Some years ago, there was a study done, and what they did was they took some very small children, and I mean very small children, 1.5, 2.5-year-old kids, and they showed them a video. And the video was CGI, of course. And what they did in the video was they made some balls bounce down along the floor and stop. And the next ball came and lined up right next to it, this ball. It's like, and then the next bouncing ball came in and lined up next to it. And eventually what happened is the balls formed a pattern as they lined up themselves into a pyramid. And when the children saw this, they went, wow, what? You know, they jumped like shock. What? How does that happen? Because you see, the point of the study was even very small children recognize that.
How does Nephilim know the internal thought processes of 1.5 and 2-year-olds? How does he know that they were questioning how it happened? Kids at that age, if you show them something bright and shiny, are just fascinated with the fact that it's bright and shiny. It could have been the fact that it was a cartoon. Also, I attempted to look up this quote-unquote study. I can't find anything on it. I couldn't find anything on this whole thing, but here's what he thinks he can conclude from this groundbreaking work with the children.
Natural processes don't order material things in astonishing ways. That things move to disorder. Even very, very small children, less than 3 years old, recognize this. And so when they see a video that looks completely real to them of balls ordering themselves into a nice stacked pyramid because they were randomly tossed down a hallway, they immediately know something's up with that because that just doesn't happen. See? And so the order and complexity and beauty and interdependencies of this world that we live in automatically tell every rational mind that there's somebody ordered it. That it didn't get this way on its own, because when we observe rocks rolling down hills, balls tossed down an alleyway, things don't actually, I mean, when any of us see.
So Nephilim, in an attempt to say that, well, when we look at the world and we see things line up, or we see complexity, we see these patterns, we know that that's special. And how do we know that, Neff? We know that from all the examples of chaos that we live with that are mundane. That's the example that you just gave. These kids were astounded because normally when people throw balls at something, they just land any which way. But in this video, they showed them they were lined up. They formed a pyramid, and the kids were astounded at that. Okay, let's claim that that's true. Let's say that that's what was astounding them, and not the fact that it was CGI flashing in front of them. That's what was triggering some of their brain to fire. What you're talking about here, the appeal to this complexity and beauty and order, comes from the fact that there's so much ugliness, chaos, and craziness going on out there. The fact that if I just throw a bucket full of rocks out a window, they're not going to land in any particular order. I would agree with you that if I threw a bucket full of rocks out my window and they landed and formed the statue of a mini David right in the middle of the road, that would be fascinating, because that's not something that's expected to happen, because that's not what normally happens. The mundane is chaotic. It is messy.
He's something really unusual, like a guy on a basketball court. You know, he's not even looking in the direction of the goal, and he just tosses the ball behind him real hard and says, "What do you think about that? Let's see what happens." Turn around, and lo and behold, it swishes through the whole hoop. I mean, everybody jumps for joy. They're like, "Wow, can't believe that!" Because that's just happenstance, random chance occurrence that just happened to turn out that way, and it's bizarre and rare. The odds that that would happen are very rare. That was a 1 in 10 million shot. Because
so it's special because the normal thing is for us to miss the tiny hoop with the big basketball.
Because he made it blind, right? So we're all shocked when we see something like that. We don't just say, "Oh yeah, well, what do you expect? Of course it's going to go through the hoop." We're blown away by this because, and small children are blown away too. So I think it's rational that everybody recognizes that the order and beauty, complexity, interdependencies of this world that we live in tell us that somebody with unfathomable power was able to do that and make this whole world.
And as a slob. Because while these things can line up and create all sorts of cool and interesting patterns that we can say, like, look at that, and then we can anthropomorphize something like that. I wish I could make something as delicate and neatly arranged as a snowflake. I bet something like me made that. A god, a personality, something with a will, right? But the fact that, you know, your house got hailed on and damaged the roof, and you know, your kid got cancer, and there's other random crap, tragic, mundane, or fortunate, you know, any of that kind of stuff that happens. Like, people assign meaning to lots of different things. Theos, who is really trying to take over the live chat here, whoever is intellectually honest today without bias will recognize that there is awe-inspiring scientific evidence that God exists. Right. And if you point out to me, if you give me an example of something that is awesome, you know, that this almost always the evidence for God's existence is something pretty. No one cites tapeworms as evidence for God, or blowflies, or botflies, leprosy, sleet, hypothermia, frostbite, you know, or even random human behavior. Well, we'll keep random human behaviors out of it. You know, have you ever seen, you know, or just, how about a decaying body? Not even a human one, just a decaying animal body. Like, those are all evidence for God too. But in many cases, what people will end up using those things as is those are metaphors for the underworld, for hell, for evil, for darkness and evil. But they're all evidence for God. What Christians end up doing is most believers do, they cherry pick the stuff that's pretty and say, that's, oh, well, we have evidence for God. It's that sunset. It's the look in my baby daughter's eye. Right. The look in your baby daughter's eye. She's a miracle until she gets cancer. And then where is God? Right. We have a way of just assuming these kinds of things because it's easy, because mostly because I think it makes us feel important. But there's this thing out there looking out for us, and it assigns meaning to these events, and that gives us hope and purpose. But if this God is also the thing upon which all things are contingent, all that horrible, nasty stuff is also his purview as well. So if you are without bias, you will acknowledge that leprosy is a beautiful thing, that childhood cancers are a beautiful thing, that parasites that cause intense pain and grow throughout the body and burst out of the skin. I can't remember what those things are called. I think they're called a fire dragon or something like that in parts of Africa. Those are beautiful things. Those are part of God's beautiful world, not just the magic triangle balls that happened when, you know, whatever.
Like it is, and all the beautiful, complex life forms and their interrelationships with each other, and everything about the world, the trees that blow in the wind, the deer, everything. It bespeaks of a creator, and man recognizes that. But I think atheists are people who see that and then suppress that in unrighteousness. They tell themselves, no, I know my mind is telling me this world had a creator because, you know, nature has shown me since I was an infant that matter doesn't naturally organize itself into starch and things. That's not natural. What's natural is matter goes the other way, right? So when they recognize that, but then they suppress that in unrighteousness. So I don't think there's anybody.
So there's no doubt. Nephilim is laying it out right here. We don't have doubt. We recognize it. We can see it in general revelation. We see it in creation. But we suppress that it's part of God because here's the interesting thing that Nephilim has also skipped past: the evidential problem of evil. The fact that people will look at the world and see it's not just the fact that some bad things happen, and that is that there's so much bad stuff that happens to so many different living things, not just humans, but animals as well. Lots of unnecessary suffering. So that's not a reason for people to doubt. Like, no, they should just accept that. Okay, well, if that's the case, then really, then you couldn't really. It seems to me that you have to be completely credulous about everything. Just everything's great. Everything's awesome.
Even atheists. I know you're going to disagree because you won't want to make this admission, but I think even atheists recognize.
And that's a weasel move. Oh, you don't want to admit it. Fuck off. That's not what this is about. I don't think it's real. Don't tell them like, oh, you just don't want to admit it. That's cheap shit. If atheists did this to Christians, if I went to any of these Christians, in fact, if I went to Otangelo, who's in here now, Theos, and just told him, you'd know damn well there's no God, but you're playing this up because you're terrified of what happens after you're dead. So you just need to admit it and give this game up. And I just insist on that and just keep hammering that. How would that make you feel in an actual discussion about any of these ideas? I'm not willing to even concede that you're honest about it, not even from the jump. You know it's bullshit, it's an imaginary friend, and you know it's imaginary, and you're insisting that it's real. You're lying to me and you're lying to yourself. Give it up. Simple.
It's in their subconscious that God does exist. And they bury that. They dig a hole in their backyard and they throw God down in it, and then they throw the dirt over and say, no, as they walk away. That's what I think they're doing. How do you respond to that?
So Neff, I appreciate you letting me on and talking to you guys. Darth, I'm just going to be honest with you. You sound like a really smart guy. But when you guys invite atheists on, don't try to attack them with theory, philosophy, linguistics. Don't try to.
We're not attacking. We're debating.
Hold on. Let me just finish.
Those are our lines of argument. They're not attacks. They're lines of argument.
I just want to give you some advice.
Nephilim is being such a dope here. What Darth was doing at the beginning was just misguided stupidity.
Because I'm not a professional debater. I don't come on here to argue philosophy and linguistics. I want to have a conversation with you where you want to try to find out, how did I come to this certain viewpoint? You don't then follow it up by just battling over, oh, well, that's fallacious and that's contradictory. Try to actually understand the person that's talking to you. And because I know you understand my responses to you, but your goal as a debater is to try to win the debate. Your goal isn't really to try to understand the person that you just invited on the show. And so my advice to you is, in the future, when you want atheists like me to come on,
I heard you. Now,
attack it differently.
What you're telling me is that when you,
like, I has to keep repeating that. I'm going to get every word out, even though Soldier didn't. I'm just going to stomp all over the end of his statement. He's clearly not done talking. Darth, you got to quit over talking people, man.
You come in here and you're making a defense for atheism, and then I ask you for your reasons for atheism, and I point out to you that your reasons that there is no God are philosophical fallacies, that I shouldn't correct you when you make errors and fallacies.
If this is something like what is, I don't know if it's actually the fallacy, but if you're spotting a fallacy in something like this is not a fallacy because he didn't present an argument. You asked him for the reasons for his belief, Darth. He's not committing a fallacy. He did this with Dr. Josh Bowen as well, because he asked Bowen, why don't you believe in God? And he actually asked him it 3 different ways. But when Bowen gives his reason, well, my work in comparative religion, studying ancient Near Eastern cultures and religions, I'm just not inclined to think that that this is real. I think that a lot of these are shared. They're the product of, much like Soldier of Science, but slightly different. They're the product of their a production of human imagination. He did the same thing. Oh, that's a genetic fallacy. You're saying that because these people imagined the wrong God, or these people are wrong and they came up with this, therefore it follows there is no God. That's not what he said. That's not what Soldier said. Accusing somebody of a fallacy when they haven't presented you with an argument is super fucking fallacious. That is dishonest, and it's ignorant, and it's pig-headedly stupid. Darth Dawkins needs to quit doing this shit. Otangelo, you should probably let him know. Because he sounds like a fucking idiot when he does this.
I shouldn't correct you.
I stated.
Scratch that. Don't tell him that. Just let him continue to sound like a fucking idiot.
To you why they weren't fallacies, and I'll tell you one. You still didn't ever answer.
You did not. Stop.
You never answered my original question.
Stop. You did not. This is absolutely false. You did not offer a counter rebuttal that you were committing non sequiturs. Okay.
He did. You didn't listen to it. He gave it right in the middle of this video. He gave it.
No, you didn't. Okay.
I said you can posit anything but into God. You can
you're not listen. You're not focusing. This is your whole problem. This is your whole problem. You are so unfocused.
I know.
Hey, don't take off, man. Because
listen. You are emotionally triggered. You are emotionally triggered. Wow, you just never shut up. You're like the Energizer Bunny. I've been listening to this whole time.
I want you to answer the question.
Okay, I'll answer your question. I'll answer the question when I have an opportunity to respond to your accusation. Now, you are just emotionally triggered.
This is so stupid. Darth is being so dumb. Yeah, Enrique. Yeah. So if he wanted him to lay out a deductive argument, then yeah, he would have to. There's no God, and here's the deductive argument for it. Hopefully, it's valid. Probably not going to be able to prove it's sound, right? Because otherwise you'd have a huge breakthrough. But inductive arguments, yeah, you can do that. There likely is no God. But Darth fucking hates inductive arguments because despite the fact that he believes in deductive validity and deductive soundness, what he does not believe in is what is it? An inductively strong, cogent argument. I think that's the strongest one. Induction is just too problematic. There's too much wiggle room with induction. There's probabilities and there's a possibility of revision, so it's not 100% certain. So fuck that shit. Even though inductive logic would also have to be the product of God's mind. So there's certain aspects of how God thinks that Darth dislikes.
Because I challenged and criticized your faulty reasoning, and then
you mischaracterized his reasons for disbelief and said that there was faulty reasoning for a philosophical argument that he did not give. This is. I mean, I kind of feel bad for Soldier of Science because he got dragged into this whole thing, and Darth just is blabbering all around it. It's just a very simple thing. He asked him for the reason, he gave it. Darth is trying to say, no, what you're committing is a genetic fallacy. You're saying that people believe this and they're wrong, therefore there is no God. Or I don't see, the reason I don't believe there's a God because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a God, therefore there is no God. He didn't commit to those things as arguments. He gave those things as reasons. I haven't seen a God. I'm inclined to think that they're products of human imagination. Those are reasons for why he doesn't believe. Darth has completely been uncharitable, dishonest, and really just completely belligerent through the entire thing, which is normal for him. But he's completely missed the point of this. He's totally mischaracterized this. This is something that sinners do, my man. This is dishonest, disingenuous, obfuscatory. I think that's the way he pronounces obfuscatory. He'll say it slow and then fuck it up later. Yeah. If anybody gets stuck with this on him, just do the Malpass thing and watch him slither away from it. Malpass called him out on it. He slid right away from it, juked right, went with something else. But because he got Soldier of Science stuck in here on goofy terms, which he's trying to figure out, that's where he usually traps most people. That's why this thing was endless.
You're emotionally triggered saying, you should just try to understand me instead of criticizing me.
No.
Well, I am going to criticize you when you're using faulty reasoning to support atheism. Okay? You atheists claim that you're champions of reason, but when I point out that your reasonings for atheism is fallacious, then you're upset going, well, you shouldn't criticize my reason. You should just try to understand me. This is the way children think. You're reasoning like a child.
Are we ready to get back to my original?
Good.
And what kind of, when you take somebody's reason for belief and turn it into a philosophical argument, what kind of reason, what's the category for that? What does that make you, Darth? I think it makes you a fucking liar. But
question.
Yeah. Now, what? Listen, the original question was why you're an atheist. That was the original question.
That's easy. He told you that. Gave you two reasons for it. He thinks that people made up gods. He's never seen God.
Okay. And you still haven't answered that because
yes, he did multiple times, and he gave you two reasons, not just one.
The two rationales that you gave, I showed were fallacies.
They're only fallacies if he gave them as arguments. He didn't. He gave them as reasons for why he didn't believe. You're an idiot, Darth Dawkins. An idiot.
And you did not offer a counter rebuttal other than giving us a long, extraneous community college lecture.
He didn't need to give a counter rebuttal, whatever that means. That's not the point. You rebutted him with something. Rebutted. You went after him with something that didn't apply. It did not apply to what he was talking about, and you've done this to many people before.
I gave you a valid rebuttal. My rebuttal, and so, which you didn't answer the first part because I wanted you to clarify. In your definition of ultimate, which you said I was making this fallacy, could you posit other things like multiple gods or the universe? Would these things fall under your definition of ultimate?
See, actually, at this point, I think Soldier is kind of taking the bait. Like he's actually kind of running at a thread that I think he should have gave up. He should have just concentrated on the fact, because he got it right before in the middle. He's like, no, there's A, there could be a God, B, there's no God, or however he put it. I don't believe in it. I haven't seen it. I'm not inclined to believe in it. That doesn't mean it's not real. Nephilim even said, yeah, that's true. It could be the case that there really is a God. You just haven't seen it and you don't believe in it. That's all he did. If Soldier of Science had kept circling back to that, like where did I make that as an argument? Where did I provide this as? I'm not providing this as an argument. You asked me why I'm an atheist and give a reason, and that's what I gave. When did this turn into, oh, well, when you provide an explanation like this, you are automatically putting it into an argument. That's not how things work. In fact, I think Darth Dawkins even attempted something kind of sleazy like this with another one of the philosophers that he was talking with on Canadian Catholics channel, and kind of fucked this up. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Stephen Law. I'll have to go back and watch that one. That's a good one.
No.
Okay, so before you answer, let me say something real quick. I want to just say, Tony, sorry you can't get in. I have a cheapy account with this live streaming, and I can only have 6 people in at one time. I'm going to upgrade. I haven't done it yet. So,
Tony, I'm about to drop off anyway. You can come
welcome, Otangelo.
Let me just briefly answer you before you go.
Glad you guys
you cannot posit a plurality of things as ultimate, because that would.
I like that definition, Enrique, that idea, the GoFundMe. But Darth is not going to pop out of hiding for that. So,
not be logically coherent. What is ultimate would have to be singular and the source of all possibility, and all other things within the set of reality would have to derive and depend on what is ultimate. So you cannot have. I'm not done yet. You can't.
Ooh, he's already getting snippy with Otangelo. I wonder where they were at in their relationship when this was going on. Alex Shaw, what is the revelations that Didi talks about? Generally, when I probably shouldn't use that as an opening. When Christians talk about revelation, they believe in general revelation and special revelation. General revelation is God's creation. Basically, the world, reality around us, literally everything is evidence for God. The fact that you're alive, the air you breathe, the sun that shines, the rain that falls, all that good stuff. That's general revelation. Special revelation would be direct communication with God or his messengers, or reading his word, which is the Bible. So the Bible counts as special revelation. That's generally what they mean by when they say God has revealed himself to us. He has revealed himself in general revelation in creation, special revelation through his Bible. However, it should also be said that special revelation would also count as visions given to the prophets, and those are not really taken too seriously nowadays. The ones that are documented in the Bible, those are okay. Anybody that has revelations now, though, you could be a false prophet, and they probably won't take that into account, because I think there was some kind of like time. There was like an expiration date on revelation. God doesn't do that anymore. He finished revealing with the Bible, and he's tapped out.
Cannot have a plurality of things being conceptualized as ultimate. You might believe that they're foundational, but they could not be ultimate, because in order to be ultimate, it means everything that is not the ultimate depends and derives on the ultimate for its existence. So you can only posit that something that is singular is ultimate. You cannot posit that a plurality is ultimate.
And I disagree with that logic.
Okay, but you're not understanding. Hold on a second, Otangelo. Okay, I will explain it again to you. What is ultimate? What is ultimate? Listen to me. What is ultimate? What is ultimate will be the source and basis of all possibility and impossibility. If there is
I'm actually coming to a deeply disturbing revelation that I think that the reason why I get a decent amount of live viewers is because 25 or so of them are Otangelo in his socks. But I am going to say this again one more time. Tangelo, I want you to make sure that you're watching this with all of your sock accounts. And I want to make sure that I'm emphasizing this enough, because I'm afraid that what you heard was I said I want you to watch this with a lot of your sock accounts. What I want you to do is watch this with every sock account that you have. And thanks for watching.
Reality of things. Why are you're not understanding? You see, your whole problem, you're not focusing, you're not listening. What is ultimate will be the source and basis of all possibility and impossibility. So if you try to shoehorn in a plurality of things, of two or more things, right, then either one of those plurality of things, two or more things, then they would all be peers. They would exist independently of each other, right? So what you're appealing to as ultimate is an abstraction, not something concrete. Only something that is singular and concrete can be ultimate as the.
That's not true. There's actually, I was trying to find this because I ran into it, and it was nice. I was even checking in with a friend of mine to find out where if he could recall this, but I think it was like a single property or a multi-property disproof of for atheism. But the idea was it was sort of a setup where you were dealing with these sort of omni properties. And the idea was that you could have, you didn't necessarily have to have them all in one being. You could have them all be in three beings, right? They're just non-overlapping. All these beings would be, so basically imagine like, and the way it's framed is pretty interesting. It's a trinity, but each aspect of the trinity has certain properties that the other one can't have by virtue of the fact that it possesses another property where they would contradict. So you have an ultimate thing, an absolute ultimate grounding for all of whatever, but it's in multiple beings, but they all combined possess all the great making abilities, and they do so in kind of a concert, a perfect harmony. So this insistence of Darth that nope, it has to be just one thing. This seems to be like he's kind of like appealing to this notion of divine simplicity, which I don't think is a good idea, but he does it anyway.
Source of all possibility.
I disagree.
Right? So a plurality of things. Listen, what I'm telling you is ironclad. If you disagree, listen to me. I'm explaining it to you. You know what? It is very disappointing to you. Disappointing to me that a 50-year-old man reasons like a 14-year-old child.
Pretty disrespectful, mate.
Okay?
To be honest.
Now, what I'm trying to say to you. Hold on a second. I got somebody calling here.
Yes, probably the neighbors telling him to shut up.
What is ultimate means that to be ultimate means to be
one of the neighbors is calling. If I hear you use the word ultimate one more time, I'm calling the police.
Unconditionally non-dependent and the source of all possibility. Right?
Well, he's already acknowledged
if we have a plurality of things existing eternally, then individually they wouldn't be ultimate, because there would be other things that would be coexisting in eternity that do not depend on the other. Therefore, neither one of them would be ultimate. As I said, they could be foundational or fundamental, but they couldn't be ultimate. To be ultimate is to be the source of all possibility.
Can I ask Soldier a couple?
Why couldn't those be all three things? I mean, you could have something that kind of kickstarted them. I don't know. Like this is odd to me. Like it has to possess that ability and then all the others too. Like that seems kind of contrived.
What questions?
So what was the source of the source then?
So hold on a second before you go on. I want to tell PaleX. There's someone trying to join, calls themselves PaleXXX. I can't let you in because I have a cheapy account with this live streaming service, and I can only have 6 people in at one time. There's 2 people trying to join the live stream. I can't let them in because it's full. I haven't upgraded yet. I will upgrade, and I can then have 12, 14, or more people.
Before Soldier goes, I want to make a brief comment. Soldier, if you look in the side chat here, not on YouTube, but in the StreamYard, there's a Discord link. Do you see that?
Can I ask Soldier a couple?
This is definitely
quiet for a second.
This is definitely ways back because he was still on Discord.
No, in the StreamYard.
It's just in the StreamYard private chat. Scroll up to the top. It'll say discord.gg. See that? That is a link. That is a link to an atheist debate center.
Look in the live stream chat now because I just pasted it in there.
Okay.
Would you please copy that? That is the
Yeah.
link to an atheist theist server where I and other atheists and theists hang out, where we can have more extended conversations and debates. And I know that we disagreed and it got.
And they're every bit as unproductive as this. This is my favorite part. After spending the better part of an hour insulting this guy, listen to this.
Got a little bit heated, but I would more than welcome you to come there so that we could have further conversations.
Okay.
A little bit heated. You called him immature. You implied heavily that he was stupid. You accused him of not being sober, of being drunk during the conversation. And well, you know what? Twas all in good fun. Let's have this chat. Let's continue to have this chat some more. Like, the only reason that Darth wants to have a chat with Soldier because he thinks he's beat him on this point because he didn't pay attention to Soldier's response to his goofy ass question 20 minutes ago in this video. And he just wants to keep doing this again and again so he can claim that like there's not an atheist around that can stand up to the power of Darth Dawkins' mind.
And before I leave, I just want to finish it at this.
Which is an idiotic thing to say. That's going to get clipped out by somebody. Fuck.
I respect your position.
Let's let Soldier have an unadulterated last word since he's about.
Yeah. So I just want to say I respect your position that by logic you would seem to think that an ultimate source would have to be singular, and I guess that's where I reject it because really what it comes down to is we don't know if there's an infinite number of gods, for example. What if
How do you know I don't know that?
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, I think this is probably about that old. I started covering these Tom Rabbittt videos, I think about 6 months back. I think this one predates them. So I'm kind of glad that he took this down for whatever he reposted it. I'm kind of glad that he did because I had kind of forgotten about this one. And I'm glad I got to cover it this time.
Brother Darth, let's let him have his say. We can talk about it when he leaves.
There could be an infinite number of gods, for example. There could be a universe that keeps.
I love that. How do you know there could be an infinite number of gods? How do you know that there's just the one? Right. The only thing that he's like, well, no, rhetorically, it has to be that way. Okay, definitionally, based on what?
Going and getting destroyed for infinity.
How do you know that?
Nothing to. I don't, but that's why I don't posit.
So you're asserting what you don't know.
Source.
So you're asserting what you don't know.
Can I ask Soldier a question?
All right, guys, I'm going to leave. I mean,
can I ask Soldier a question?
We're not going to get beyond that. We're not going to get beyond. Shoot one question before I go.
Soldier, okay. Why don't you believe in the Bible? What would you say are the main reasons?
Sorry, you broke up there.
What would you say your main reason is why you don't believe in the Bible?
My main reason, I think, to me, it comes down to actually just the math and statistical probability and the history of the world itself. I think the best way I could explain it to people is are you familiar with database? Like, have you ever worked in Excel spreadsheet, for example? Have you ever done that?
Briefly, I'm not familiar with it, no.
Okay, so if I was to show you an Excel spreadsheet, and then I just listed every god that men have believed in for 200,000 years, and I listed all of that out, and then I showed you the populations of people who believed in those gods and their peaks and when they died out. And then ultimately, I came up with a formula based on all of that data, which I could do right now. Then what it comes down to is your belief in any specific God, whether it's Jesus Christ, whether it's any other God. It really comes down to four major things, and that's where you were born, the time in history that you were born.
Yeah, that's an atheist cliche. What you're saying right now.
What your parents believe, and what
could you let him finish, Darth, please?
Yeah, way to go, Darth. You're interrupting the answer he's giving to another person.
So this is what I believe. So for me, it came down to statistics. And if you do the spreadsheet right now and you looked up the amount of gods, what I call the fallout rate for what we no longer believe in, it's 99%. It's every god that existed before the one you believe in. And even after that, you don't believe in the Mormon God, right? You don't believe in this guy in Russia who calls himself.
That doesn't mean God doesn't exist.
So my point
is an atheist talking point.
No, it's a math and statistical probability for me that the God that you believe in does not exist. Now,
I think it's mathematically.
That's a pretty good reason, though. I mean, what he's basically saying is like, there's lots of different examples of lots of different other gods and lots of different other cultures that have disappeared and died out. Darth is always saying, well, no, that's just a cliche. Right? That's not a bad reason in terms of like the kind of, backing the idea like, yeah, I'm not inclined to think that there actually is a God because a lot of these other gods that people were convinced were actual all kicked off too. Now, if you're going to try to frame that in some kind of a philosophical, like a deductive argument, it's not going to get anywhere because it's basically, like you're trying to state like, because 900 people were wrong, this one person is also wrong. That's not going to follow deductively, but inductively or abductively, it's not entirely bad. I think this is one of these issues that Darth and Nephilim and a lot of these guys get into. Like, for whatever reason, like they get into a conversation and they treat everything that the atheist says, like every sentence they want to break down like you just spoke a syllogism, and then it's like they're playing a game of whack-a-mole on fallacies, which they usually fuck up, and they just don't seem to understand. Like, no, if you're having a conversation, like laying out a deductive syllogism is different than laying out other arguments or listing different reasons why you don't believe stuff, because you're going to use different kinds of logics in order to get there. People can use inductive logic and they can be convinced by that. Christians are convinced by inductive logic.
It's statistically likely that the plethora of gods that men believe in don't exist because one of them does.
Good. Guess what? I got some bad news for you, soldier. That argument you just gave turns on yourself, because you're a part of those worldviews that are included. Therefore, your position is statistically improbable too, and
that doesn't make any sense.
You're going to have to reject that. So that your argument. Listen to me carefully. The argument you just gave is self-refuting.
Not really, but
no, it is, because your belief system is one of a myriad. You believe, okay, in Buddhism holds to do you believe Buddhism is a religion?
He's just flailing at this point. This is really weird.
Okay, so Buddhism is essentially atheistic, but you just told me you used that argument against Buddhism, didn't you?
Religion can be a
Let me finish. Did you use that argument against Buddhism, soldier?
You wouldn't have to if it's atheistic. Like now he's conflating different things. He's conflating God concepts, or gods that have been postulated by different people, with religious traditions or religious beliefs. Not all religious beliefs posit a deity. So when he's saying, like, I'm looking at different cultures that posited gods, and some of those people could be convinced that those gods are real, but not be particularly religious, right? They're just culturally grown up thinking that there's a Baal or there's a Moloch or whatever, and you see these kind of fall away. What Darth is asking him to do here, like, well, did you use it on Buddhism? Huh? Did you? Huh? Like, why? He's already said it's not Buddhism is essentially atheistic. It's not positing a deity. So why would he use it on that? The claim wasn't about religion in total. It was about deities. Those are separate things.
Can I finish my original question?
No, all I want to know is, did you just use your argument against Buddhism there?
Guys,
I only heard
did you use your argument against Buddhism?
For fuck's sake, it wouldn't apply to Buddhism, you dickhead, because he's not talking about religion. He might actually have been. Soldier might have been a little bit less clear with that. But if he's going to talk about religion, but it's pretty clear, and if you're willing to be charitable, which Darth clearly isn't, he's talking about religions that posit deities.
Darth, I'm trying to finish the original question.
I'm showing you how what you just said is a fallacy.
But let him respond in kind.
Yeah.
In all truth,
as I was trying,
7 words out for every 60.
I got 2. Geography. Where you
So,
the statistical probability of the Bible being the one God out of all thousands.
Yeah.
Frank, you're coming in really low. Can you do something with your mic, man?
All right, soldier. That probabilistic argument refutes your position.
Darth, hold on. And so, and I said the fallout rate, which is, really what gods do you believe in? That
you're not understanding. Your position is self-refuting.
Darth, let me finish this guy's question. So to me, that shows that statistically, just throughout history, just looking at world history, that statistically everybody believed in a current God, whether it was 2,000 or 3,000 years old, but 99% of them you've rejected. And so the odds of the current God that you believe in is accurate, just like everybody else who lived in Greece, for example, their current God. So let me finish.
No, you got the wrong idea of what a God
is. Let me finish.
It would be a fallacy if he was making it as a deductive argument. He's making it as more of he's talking about it being probabilistically true. He's not making like a conclusive deductive argument. Like, this is absolutely how it works. Because those gods were false, this one definitely is too. Because here's the trickier thing that he could get into. Like, those people gave up those gods, but what if one of those gods were real? What if the God that you believe in is one that you bypassed it? Like, it turns out we go to the afterlife, and like it's just been Odin all along.
I'm going to respond to that when he's through.
Please,
Yeah, it's a
guys,
total
let me
fallacious
finish.
because then that refutes. Then that what you're saying refutes Buddhism.
Darth,
Simple
let's let him
question:
finish his
is
assertion.
what you're saying refute Buddhism?
Darth, let's let him
No.
finish.
Okay. Look. Here's the problem. This guy. Listen. I'll tell you why I didn't let him finish. Because all he was simply doing. I'm going to explain to you. Were you privy to the entire conversation that I had with him?
Yeah, but
Frank.
it just got so
Yeah,
Okay. Well, Frank. I want to ask you a question. I want a question. No.
Jesus.
What he was doing was Hey, Frank. I know that. I'm trying to explain to you that if we let him go, he will go on and on and on and on.
No,
The argument that he just gave.
In all truth, Darth, he really didn't get much of a chance.
yeah.
He was repeating the same thing over and over and over again. That is why I interjected. Okay.
Maybe so, but I think he deserves.
Just keep in mind he's already gone, and now they have to listen to him. They have to listen to Darth yell at them.
to speak a little bit more.
No, he kept on repeating the same thing over again. At a certain point, we got to say, okay, enough. Let me just make a final comment. Let me make a final comment. Let me make a final comment about Soldier. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to throw.
He's not going to try to throw him under the bus, but I bet you he makes some kind of claim about his maturity, his behavior, or his level of intelligence.
Throw him under the bus because he's not here. Because I said the same thing to. Shut up! I'm talking. Shut up! I'm talking.
He didn't get to.
It's a very nice behavior from him.
Now, shut up! I'm talking. He's not here anymore. Shut up. Now, I'm summing up what was characteristic about Soldier. Okay.
Do you really have to sum it up because you've been repeating things over and over and over again? So why doesn't somebody mute your fat mouth?
Virtually all of his reasoning was convoluted and self-contradictory.
So was yours, Darth Dawkins. And actually, while I disagreed with some of the angles that Soldier of Science went on, most of them weren't like contradictory or apparently bad. And the fact that he answered your question and you didn't even realize it means that you look worse in this exchange than he did.
He did not have the ability. He did not have the ability to literally reason like an adult. He put on full display the reasoning that we would expect from a 15-year-old. I showed
double shot. So he made it. He basically combined two into one. He was too immature to be smart. He defied my expectations. Good job, Darth. If he could have worked in like the fact that he was so childish and drunk, he couldn't think straight. Made himself too stupid. He would have gotten everything in there.
Shut up! Shut your mouth. Nephilim, would you mute this guy?
Well,
or I'll just kill my sound. I'd like to finish because I have to go. All right. Now.
Okay.
Because he filled his diaper. Diaper's full.
Well,
now, this guy Soldier put on full display that he had the level of reasoning of a 15-year-old. It was that bad. He did not offer rebuttals to my refutations of his reasoning whatsoever. What he did,
he didn't have to, you dipshit.
Offer, which he claimed were rebuttals, was just simply monologuing. He wasn't focused at any time on anything that I was saying. He wasn't even aware.
About 60 times.
Okay, so we're done. The guy was a moron.
Yeah, he was.
He wasn't trying to throw him under the bus, but he was too immature to be reasonable. He's a moron. So I guess Darth was right. He didn't throw Soldier of Science under the bus. He chucked him under a train.
Anything but God. The atheist.
All right, I'm done, guys. I'll see you later.
Well, Darth.
Diapers full. Yeah, I think he got good and worked up at the end there. I think he's probably squishing in some filth there. Sorry, folks. It's just, what an old dingbat. All right, so I am gonna open up the. It's been going on for way too long, but I'm gonna throw the link in there in case anybody wants to jump in. I'll wrap this up. Let's see. All right, I'm going to kind of clean this up, pin that message. If anybody wants to come in, this has been going on for a little while now, and usually this is when I kind of wind things down. But if anybody wants to come in or anybody's got questions you want to ask, go ahead. But you probably could have asked them all along anyway. Let's see. Get rid of that. Hello.
Yes. God damn, that video's. I was back and forth on that one, but.
It's awful. Yeah, I remember when you called me and told me about it. I'm like, yeah, I remember, and I felt bad because Tom Rabbittt showed up in here, and I was like, he's like, yeah, no, I took this down and then put it back up. somebody said it's like, yeah, it's probably close to 8 months old. And I'm like, yeah, I probably watched it on Tom Rabbitt's channel and forgot about it.
I don't think Soldier did the best of jobs there, but I mean, holy crap, it doesn't. I mean, you got to love it when Darth tries to go for the gotcha moment, right? What do you mean Buddhism? What do you mean? Did you apply the same logic to Buddhism? Did you apply the same logic to Buddhism? Yes, Darth, and to Scientology as well. Now shut the fuck up and let me finish answering this question.
Yeah, or
just give him what he wants. Just give the guy what he wants and let him fucking spin around like a fucking rabbit animal.
Like the way he started talking about it is like you basically already set up the fact that it wouldn't apply to Buddhism, because he's talking about religions with deities and how those deities no longer exist. Nobody claims to believe in them anymore. Like this is not that hard to follow. Like, well, you didn't use it for that, and because you didn't use it for Buddhism, you didn't use it for your own atheist worldview. So your atheist worldview could be wrong too. Like, okay, but that doesn't apply to that.
We could all be wrong. We could all be wrong. And
hello, Mike. Richard says, I would love to come in, but I just feel bad for you. Do you really want to go another hour? No, we'd probably only be going for another 10 minutes tops, I think. They'll probably wrap this up, Richard. Otherwise, I'd love to have you in, but yeah, I forgot that the Soldier of Science one was that long. I probably should have paced myself.
Yeah. Well, I think you're almost up to 700 subscribers.
Oh yeah, I guess I should just happy 700 subscribers. Thanks, folks. If I did hit that, I think it was like 696 last time I checked.
No, 699 last I looked.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
But yeah, Mickey D, how's it going?
Hey Jefferson, how y'all doing?
I'm doing all right. I don't know if you've ever been in here before. Christian, atheist, Buddhist?
See, I consider myself an agnostic.
Yeah, okay, agnostic. All right.
Yeah.
Damn it! I was kind of hoping that you were like, I don't know, Zoroastrian or something, kind of, something unique.
Nah, but I do study Buddhism and Hinduism from time to time.
Gotcha. So I think I've seen you before on like the live chat. I don't know if have you been following me long?
Not long. I mean, when I get the chance. I mean, come on. I do have a life besides coming here.
Yeah, I don't have much of a life. That's why I do these videos. Yeah,
you have to give it all up. Give it
up. COVID has sent me underground forever. So I lurk in the basement and go after other basement dwellers like Darth Dawkins. So,
well, at least you're contributing.
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah,
I mean that's better than what he's doing.
Yeah. He just
kind of. He's contributing to Jeff's contributing.
Yeah, well, I mean, he would be less interesting to me if he would show up and actually have discussions with people instead of using every exchange as an opportunity to show everyone his ass. I don't get this guy. Like any of the Christians that are like kind of backing him either. Like it's like you wouldn't be able to tolerate this guy in your church. So don't give me this stuff like, well, he's got a tough behavior, he's got a tough persona. He's a little assertive. He's rough around the edges. Like, no, he's not. He's a dick. Now don't bullshit a bullshitter. He's a fucking prick. And if he was in a church, you'd kick him out. You wouldn't let him become a member. You wouldn't let him anywhere near your kids.
Actually, I think there's could be an argument made for the psychological state of these particular individuals. Kind of like people liking what's his name, the former sheriff, Arpaio from Arizona. Have I got that? Am I pronouncing his name?
Yeah, Joe Arpaio. Yeah,
Joe Arpaio. They may not like him personally, but he was tough on, he was tough on criminals, tough on crime. That's probably what these guys are thinking. Some of these other Christians are thinking with Darth. Yeah, he's kind of a dick, but at least he's tough on atheists because atheists are just criminals when it comes to religion.
All right, please.
Some of them just think it's a logical entailment that atheists should just go out and fucking eat puppies, cut the faces off newborn children and stuff like that.
I think it's that now that both atheism and agnostics have more of a platform, so we are actually telling people who we are and what we think, and what we truly believe. So, and that contradicts what they have been told in the church.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the fact that a lot of this stuff, I think that's probably part of the reason why I mean, because I don't know if like 15, 20 years ago, Darth Dawkins would have been quite as boisterous and obnoxious as he is now. But I think a lot of it was, I mean, there was like the rise of like the new atheist types, the Four Horsemen, the Dawkins, Dennett, Harrison, Hitchens, thing. But even after that, the fact that like social media got into this kind of thing, and you started seeing these conversations happen, two things you're not supposed to talk about at the dinner table: politics and religion. People are talking about them all the time on social media, and you have atheists and agnostics, coming to the table and talking to Christians. And Christians, for the most part, for a long time in American culture, basically existed in a very cozy bubble. They didn't really have to deal. That was the whole point of church. You go there, and if somebody presented, ideas that were difficult or uncomfortable for them, they could just ask them to leave the congregation and find someplace else to go worship. But now they're online, and somebody like one of us would be like, yeah, I think, somebody gives the line from that Daniel Day-Lewis has, and what was that? Oh God, why am I blanking on the title of that movie? The oil drilling movie where he's just
I just blanked on
There
it.
Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood.
Man, I think I know what you're talking about, but you know what? I'm blanking myself.
It's There Will Be Blood, and he says, he tells that preacher, he's like, I want you to tell me that how does he put it? Like something is a lie, God is a superstition. And it's just like, and I've heard atheists and some agnostics basically say that same thing bluntly to Christians. And if they're in social media, it's not like they're at church anymore. It's not, they're having religious conversations with people from other religions, and it can get ugly.
Right. And as we get more information in both history, anthropology, and including science that completely contradicts what people in the church believe in the Bible and what they believe in other cultures.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think like the approach that I was taking before, I think, was some of my, if I would do any videos, I would kind of like try to get into some like religious stuff, because I'm not a scholar or anything, but I kind of got into reading like the New Testament and the Old Testament from the perspective of like, how would this get presented in academia? Like how like I'll grab a textbook on each. I'll read some of the introductory texts. I'll read what things, usually a textbook is going to present you with some sort of consensus scholarship on it. It's going to have weaknesses, but it's still going to get you in the ballpark. And it was amazing. Like the more that I did with that, I had a completely different appreciation for what those books are than what I think most Christians present. And now it's like it actually kind of surprises me, I think, in some cases, because I think if people are interested, I think most people end up getting exposed to like the Bible through Christianity. And knowing what I know now, having come up in a religious background and then kind of getting into like studying the Bible a little bit more objectively later on, I think the best way for people to really get exposed to the Bible and have a better appreciation for it, a better respect for it, is to learn about it from that side of things, rather than have like a minister kind of pick it apart. And
right, as I would say, like, see it mostly as a literary piece or a historical piece, instead of like as in completely literal.
Right. You treat it as a cultural icon, because it is
exactly one. Yes.
That's But and so you don't have to shit on it. You don't have to say that it's stupid. You don't have to say that it's pernicious and there's horrible influence. Really, the biggest problem is that it's much easier for people, especially in this country, to go to a church and get the wrong concept of what's in the Bible and what, especially the Hebrew Bible, but
right.
Even in some cases the New Testament. But it's a lot harder for them to get access to, say, just a kind of a freshman level intro class to like this is what scholars think the Bible, these books mean, and this is what they think the intentions of all these different books were. And it's not, it's not a narrative. It's not a single book with a single intention to tell you exactly how things work. It's
exactly. It's basically a literary piece that brought in by different narrators from different timelines. Because we have to also remember that the God of the Old Testament was considered part of a pantheon from the Canaanites. And that has also evolved from a polytheism to a monotheism later on.
There's I should put them in here because they're still on YouTube, but there's the 2 Yale Open courses that are available. There's one on the Old Testament, there's one on the New. The New Testament is from Dale Martin, who's kind of a contemporary of Bart Ehrman. And he's kind of interesting because he is a believer. I think he's Anglican. But he has an interesting take on some of the parts of the Bible because I think he's also gay. And he doesn't hide it at all. He doesn't try to, like, he's Anglican and he's gay. And with the Anglican Church, that's not really an issue. But because he actually, I think of one of the lectures in that open course, he's actually gives a criticism or mentions a criticism that he recommends about the new atheists, about Harrison, Dennett, and Dawkins. He points to this other scholar. But then Yale Open Courses has one on the Old Testament, which is from, I want to say her name is Hendricks or Henderson or something like that, Christina Catherine. And that one's
I'm not familiar with her. But I think I would like to check her out too.
That one's really good because she kind of goes into she gets into the very beginning of sort of ancient Near Eastern mythology, talking about Tiamat and Marduk and sort of that kind of basic story, and then draws parallels
between Sumerian legends.
Yeah, and she draws parallels to that and some of the stuff that you see, some of like the little ideas that are dropped in like the Book of Genesis. So it's really cool. And then she brings up, she's one of the scholars that I think I think it's more consensus idea, where she's just like, yeah, this Yahweh God is a Canaanite God. There was a Canaanite pantheon, and they're all kind of getting this idea. They're kind of sharing these ideas with each other, and Yahweh is one of them. So it's pretty cool.
I see. Well, what's her name again? I think.
Let me see. It's Yale Open Courses. I can pull it up here real quick and find out what her name is. Yale Open Courses, Old Testament.
Yeah, because this is interesting for me because I just decided to go back to college to finally get my degree in history.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So, well, this is like my first year, so I'm trying to get my bearings and everything.
Yeah. Yep. No, I get that. I've been thinking about going back to school, but I'm not. I went to college. I did get my bachelor's, but I've got friends and some, not really family, but some friends that have been encouraging me to maybe get my master's degree. But the costs of getting them now are really crazy. So,
oh, do not get me started. Trust me.
Yeah, it's nuts. I was right. Her first name begins with a C and her last name begins with an H, and that's the only part I got right. Her name is Professor Christine Hayes.
Christine Hayes. Okay.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat, but it was good. I don't know that I caught every single lecture. I think I might have missed some of the last two. I'll pop it in the live chat, and then I'll put it in the private chat here too.
Okay.
Yeah, if anybody else is interested in that, I really recommend that. If you're interested in getting into that kind of stuff, it's a little bit different than like going after Darth for being a jerk, but I think it's always kind of handy and it gave me a better appreciation for some of the arguments, because that's really when I usually get kind of the dopamine kicks in. If I hear Darth making a lot of like theological claims, that's when I go back to these resources and I'm like, no, no.
Right. Because honestly, when I hear guys like Darth, it also reminded me of some people I had to go through when I was going to church.
Yeah.
I mean, well, mostly because I had to, because let me put this out. I was the grandson of a pastor.
Okay.
So, and trust me, you will meet a lot of different people when it comes to science and philosophy. And I do remember this one person who firmly believed in the Antichrist, as in he is not like this one singular person, but he is like this system, as in like he was in the media, in politics, and everything.
Already,
and that was mostly how I was exposed to.
Yeah. Most of my religious background was like, I went through a couple of different churches, but the first one was sort of like a Pentecostal thing praying in tongues and hollering and stuff like that. And then as we got older, we stayed in the same town, but we moved kind of into town. We used to live way out in the boonies, and when we moved in, we started going to a church the total opposite. It was very conservative, buttoned down, no more praying in tongues, no more hooping and hollering. It was hymns and an organ, and potluck dinners. The craziest that these people got was that they would pig out on Sundays. They would do an afternoon potluck. Gluttony was apparently okay. Everything else was banned. You couldn't play cards, you couldn't dance, couldn't smoke, couldn't drink, none of that stuff. But you could eat like a bottomless pit. So I do have to say, Joseph, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, but I can see you there. It says device is not connected. He's trying to jump in, but I can't add you because it doesn't look like your mic and or camera are working. I don't know if I need to remove him or not. I don't know if I can. Maybe I have to. I'm gonna kick you from the studio. I don't know if you can hear me, but maybe that'll let you re-add yourself.
Let's see. Anyone else trying to get in?
No, just him.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Well, this has been going on for a while, and I usually don't get too many guests unless I get a few people that I know. But I don't know that they showed up. I've got a few people from England and a guy from the Netherlands that usually show up, but it's still got a decent amount of views on this one. So, but yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. But if you want to continue talking, I can wrap this up if you want to talk in the background.
Nah, I'm good, Jefferson. I better get on going anyway.
Okay. Yeah, if you're busy. Thanks for stopping in. It's nice meeting you. I hope you check out more of my videos later.
Oh yeah, I will. If I have the time, because I got other things to do. I have a life.
That's the second time you said that. I kind of feel a little guilty when you do, because it kind of sounds like maybe I don't. That's just me being insecure.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel bad, Jefferson.
I know that's just my insecurity talking. Sorry,
but I do appreciate your videos, though. I mean, I have been exposed to Darth Dawkins like maybe a few times, and he is the kind of guy kind of gets your adrenaline going. It's kind of an addiction now. Yeah.
It definitely like fires up the dopamine a little bit. Yeah. He's a phenomenon. Yeah. He's definitely an outlier. He's sort of like the extreme of like how bad a person can behave in some of these things. But
I think mostly he's the extreme of what happens when conservative creationism kind of dies down.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I definitely get this feeling like he's sort of like the lashing out kind of culture warrior. Like he's sort of beating against a tide that's kind of moving in the other direction, and he's just exhausted and ticked off that things
are. He is part of a dying generation that's not seen as acceptable now.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, and the sad thing is that I mean I don't see their generation like boomers in general get hell it's a pejorative now, but there's a certain amount of value to that generation, and I don't really go in for too much of that infighting, mostly because I'm a Gen Xer. And Gen Xers are shit. So
let me just say this then. He's the part of the what used to be the majority. Yeah, but now has slowly become the minority.
I think he's a good example of like what happens when if you settle into kind of because I think he does represent kind of like an almost cliche of that generation's intransigence and kind of entitlement. Like he doesn't have to change. Everything needs to conform to his sense of right and wrong, even though everyone else's morality has moved past his. It's moved on, and he doesn't believe that that's a thing. He doesn't think that morality changes. That people change their views and mature and all that kind of stuff. But he desperately wants. He that's how things need to be. And if they're not that way, then they're not right and they're not healthy. They're not godly. And it's like,
well, that's not healthy either.
Nope, it certainly isn't.
So you can see by his attitude.
Yeah.
All right, Jefferson, I better get on out of here. You take care, all right?
Thank you. You too, and good luck with school. Hope to see you around later. Yeah. Right, have a good night. Bye. All right, folks. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, Otangelo. Richard, I'm sorry I wasn't going to stay on long enough to have you on. I did stay on longer than I thought, and this is almost a 3-hour stream, so this is long for me. I'm going to wrap it up. Hopefully, you and I can do a conversation. You had asked me about doing one before. It's been a long time. So anyway, folks, I will try to do one of these hopefully over the weekend some point. But otherwise, I will see you later. If I don't do one, if I'm gone, everybody have a great holiday coming up. Even if you don't like Thanksgiving, you hate its guts, try to enjoy yourself. Do something that you do like. I don't think Thanksgiving is particularly important, but I like spending time with my family and eating way too much turkey. So if we don't see you then, have a great one. Otherwise, you will catch me around later. So take care of yourselves, behave, good luck, good night.